Speaking out of Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome everyone to the Spotlight here on Fightful. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That is Stephen Jensen. It is Thursday, November 14th, and shout out as always to Big Dick MLJ for the intro. As always, we got a lot to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. But first, Jensen, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. A little tired this morning, but the weather's cold and rainy here in Atlanta, so kind of a little slow start to the morning today. But I hope everybody is doing well. Hope everyone here in the chat is having a good morning, and hope you are as well. But yeah, not a whole lot really going on. Vikings got another win, so good things going on in football. I play a lot of Madden online. Been doing a lot of that too.
That's terrible,
dude. It's definitely frustrating. There are things about the game that are like, yeah, I've even watched like YouTube videos on it, like certain things that like I have gripes on. I'm like, there's no way I'm the only one dealing with this. And then like, I look online, it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's like a known problem. So yeah, but I will say I have been spending a lot of time playing Madden online lately, and I have been having fun with it for the most part, but there's a lot of frustrations. But I love the NFL season. It feels like it's so short. We're already like halfway through. So I try to kind of savor the entire NFL experience, and yeah, hopefully my Vikings, keep on winning because they've been looking pretty good. But how about you, man? How you doing? Any thoughts on football or anything else going on?
Yeah, don't let the Panthers get hot. 2 straight wins.
There you go.
Who's gonna stop us?
Hey,
I got the NCAA Madden like bundle because I was really hyped for the NCAA game.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've basically been done playing NCAA, unfortunately. Once the NBA season starts, that's where a lot of my attention and focus goes to, and the NHL season. The Madden game, I played that for like a week, and I was like, this game just sucks. Like I hadn't bought it in the past couple of years because I just gave up on it. But because it was part of the bundle this year, I was like, all right, it just makes more sense to save money and get both of them. Yeah, I won't make that mistake again. Like,
yeah.
The EA games just aren't good. I haven't bought NHL in a couple of years because it hasn't been good for a few years now. Like I might end up buying it next year just because it'd be like 3 years, and I would hope after 3 years I would see enough improvement to be like, all right, you know what, let's give this thing a shot. But every year I just get disappointed with it to where I was like, I can't really do this. It's just not good.
Yeah, that's the problem with those EA sports games that have the exclusivity. Like they've gotten like super complacent. I don't know how it works with all the other sports, but I know the NFL for like the last decade or whatever, like Madden is the only NFL licensed game that they're allowed to do. But I remember back in the day when we had like the ESPN.
Oh yeah,
that was a lot of fun, and like it made it to where Madden was also great then too, because like they had the competition, like they had similar to pro wrestling. We talk about all the time, whether or not you you love or hate AEW or TNA or any of these other companies, WWE, whatever. Like the competition pushes people. I feel like wrestling across the landscape is like the best it's ever been right now, like on a big scale. And it's like the opposite when it comes to games like Madden that are staples of pop culture too, humongous video game franchises that have become so complacent and just rely on like microtransactions and all this stuff. And it's just really strange when you play these games and like it's supposed to be like a NFL simulator, right? Like it's supposed to be a realistic NFL game, but they somehow have this like weird hybrid of like super unrealistic arcade elements in it that just don't make any sense. Like for instance, if you're playing Madden online, go for it on 4th and anything. It doesn't matter if it's 4th and 1 or if it's 4th and 22. Like just go for it, because Madden's gonna just like give it to you. They'll make somebody insanely open. The ball will go through receivers sometimes for like it's so weird. Like the hitbox detection doesn't make any sense. Like sometimes people make tackles, sometimes they don't. A lot of the time the blockers will just straight up just block the wrong people. Like you'll run a great route right by the books, and it's not even like they're missing the blocks. They'll run past the person they're supposed to block and run towards like a group of people that doesn't make any sense that they'd be going towards. Like if this was a real NFL game. So there's stuff like that where it's just like it makes it super, super random where no matter how good you are, like I'm currently in, I think, the Hero 2 rank, which is only like 2 away from the top 100 rankings. So like I'm playing really, really good players, and these are really close games usually and really low scoring games usually that always come down to like one giant play, and it's usually on like a 4th and 20 when anyone else in the world would ever have to punt in real life. But in Madden, they're just going to probably give it to you. So anyway, I don't want to bore everybody with this talk, but there's probably a lot of people that watch this show potentially in the chat that play Madden or that have played Madden, given up on Madden for a lot of these reasons. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, as a football fan, I'd like to have a good football game, and I want to be able to play it all year, even when the NFL season isn't going on. But I don't have a lot of faith in it because they did the same thing with a lot of their games. Like the Star Wars Battlefront games, I remember the first one being, I'm not even a Star Wars fan, but I used to like playing the games. And the first Star Wars Battlefront game was awesome. And then EA just, I mean, I don't even know what the right word is. They made the second game completely reliant on microtransactions where
that's the biggest complaint with any EA game is you got to play the Ultimate Team stuff. And then, so for the NHL series, I don't play a lot of the online stuff. It's not for me. But when it comes to like the Ultimate Team stuff, the NHL series, a lot of people were unhappy this year because apparently like the way to get like good players, like you have to really grind, and then the best you're going to get is like a 79 overall. It's like, why am I going to spend 6 weeks to grind for this, and at the end of the tunnel you're giving me a 79 overall? Like that's not even a good player, and then I got to spend 6 more weeks to upgrade that card and everything. I hate the Ultimate Team. I tried that Ultimate Team like the first year it came out on the NHL systems. Like, oh, this is a cool concept. You collect cards and like players of the past, and it's pretty sweet. And I spent like weeks trying to get like a cool pack, and I got this cool pack, and like the best I got was like an 83 overall. I was like, this is dumb. Why did I spent way too much time? I'd rather just play, my franchise mode and build my team through that. It's so the microtransactions are way, way too much.
Yeah, they make it play to win now. So like everything you just said happens to somebody who doesn't want to spend, like you keep pumping money into a game that they've already purchased, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense because most people, it's like when you buy the game, like you feel like you've paid for the game. And I understand expansion packs and stuff like that. Like I feel like WWE overcharges for their stuff, but like at the end of the day, it isn't really the end of the world because like you do get a whole bunch of new characters throughout the year and stuff like that. And like, that's I have some issue with that, but not a massive issue. What I have the biggest issue with is what you're talking about, because that happened in the Star Wars games and everything too, where it becomes pay to win, where we're sitting here playing the game and building our characters how you're supposed to through the actual gameplay from the actual game that we purchased. But then somebody just buys the same game and then puts like another $100 into it in like upgrades and different characters and people that you can't even get if you don't buy those. So you're just playing against people that are worse than you at the game, but they're always beating you because they have better characters and better weapons or whatever it is for the game, and they're only getting those because they're paying more than you are to play the game. See, like something like Fortnite, I don't have a problem with because excuse me, those are all cosmetic, so that's all. Nothing you buy in Fortnite can make you better at the game. Like, it just makes your character look different or make your weapons look cool or whatever, but it doesn't change how accurate you are with your weapons. It doesn't change how strong your character is or how much damage your character can take. So I'm totally fine with the idea of microtransactions if they're simply cosmetic, because it's basically just for ways for players to flex on each other by having like, cool gear. But when you're paying to win and you're losing to people that are worse than you are at a game because they're paying more money to play the game, that's what I have a giant problem with. And that's what EA Sports has become like notorious for, unfortunately, or EA in general has become notorious for, unfortunately. So I'm right there with you. And I think people in the chat are too.
EA also loves to do, especially with their sports games, they love to like take away stuff and then add it back 5 years later. And like it's some new addition. They did this with the NHL series. Like, oh, now you have this. I was like, cool. You gave me this in NHL 13. Like, and then you just like took it away without saying anything, but we noticed it. And now you're adding it back for NHL 24 and acting like it's some fancy new addition to the game. Like, no, we had this 10 years ago. The games were somehow better 10 years ago because they basically, they had to be a little bit better because, you know, now it's so reliant on like, oh, this new engine and these cool graphics. And that's like what they show. Where back in the day, like the graphics were an improvement, you know, from system to system, from year to year, but it wasn't certainly as fancy as it looks now. Now I play games and the kids walk in the room and like, are you watching this? And like, it's so realistic because the graphics are so good. Back in the day, like you could tell you weren't watching an actual game. You could tell it was a video game. So it's like, well, we got to make the gameplay pretty good because we know the graphics aren't quite up to like what real life is. I think that's actually what's ruined sports games is the graphic technology has gotten too good. And so that's all people cared about. Or that's all the developers cared about. But they took away so many like presentation elements of like, I was watching a video the other day of Madden and they showed the fans like tailgating outside and they did like a quarterback breakdown of like, here's the two quarterbacks going head to head. And it's like, you don't even get the coin toss in Madden anymore.
You don't. No, you just find out who's kicking and receiving at the beginning of the game. Yeah.
Like how stupid is that? Like why, in what world do you need to like take this out of the game? Why are we taking out the coin toss for a game? Yeah, you have to like set your default of like, do you want to receive or do you want to kick? Which way do you want to go if you receive the ball? It's like, why can't we just do a coin toss? Why is this being taken out? It's so
Well, most of the stuff that they add back in, they only wind up adding because like the fan response for years is like, why did you take this out to begin with? And then they finally do it like a big, hey, we got this big reveal for y'all. I know exactly how that feels. Like, and that's another thing too. And this is why I know we got to talk about wrestling, but like,
who cares?
But this is wrestling related. That's why people had, in my opinion, because I'll take gameplay over graphics any day of the week, any game. Like I want the game to be fun more than I care about how real it looks. And that's why I think a part of the reason people got so excited for AEW Fight Forever, and even though it took so long for it to come out, people like, you know, it was like this big chance for similar to what they did in the pro wrestling industry to come in and be a disruptor and be a real competitor when it comes to like, you know, in-ring wrestling and, you know, another alternative wrestling company and stuff. They're the same, opportunity in the video game space because people have gotten so complacent and angry with the WWE video game series. So it was like, oh, there's a new game. It's going to be AEW. They're saying that they're going to be working with the same people that made those classic N64 games and stuff like that. Kenny Omega's behind it. He's a big gamer. And one of the big knocks was, well, the graphics look weird. Like they look like old grounds. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care at all. Like as long as it's fun. And then the problem was it wasn't fun. And like, everyone gave up on the game super fast. And it's like, you know, so my point is AEW, like, I don't even care what their game looks like. They mess up the gameplay itself. But like, had the gameplay been great and the game looks how it looks, I'd still be playing it right now. You know, I don't even care what it looks like.
I think the gameplay was good. I mean, speaking for me personally, like I didn't mind the gameplay. The problem was like the depth of the game. Like there's only so many times you could do kind of the same type of match and there's nothing else to it. Like Michael in the chat is saying like they did too many DLCs. Like the roster was outdated from the day it got released, unfortunately. And then like they added the DLC, but like doing the DLC and stuff and then asking people to pay for that after you paid on top of a game, it's just like, I don't know about paying even more. And then like it's still outdated. Like Timeless Tony Storm, I don't even think she's in the game. Like by the time they put Tony Storm in the game, it was Outcast Tony Storm, and it's like, well, this character hasn't been around for a year. I don't want to use Outcast Tony Storm. Where's Timeless Tony Storm? And like the creation suite, there was no real depth to that. So you couldn't even like create a good wrestler who was similar to maybe someone you could create elsewhere from like WWE or anything. And honestly, like the WWE games became kind of good. Like the past couple of WWE games were pretty good, especially compared to, you know, they took like a year off after that debacle of like, I think it was 2K20
Yeah,
That
game was like unplayable on the Switch.
Yeah.
Like they tried to port it and like it just straight up didn't even work on some systems. Yeah, that was a mess. Actually, I like the new. I've been playing the new WWE game since it came out. Like I actually like the new one personally. So, no, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I think the chat's with us too. I mean, everyone kind of.
Oh, the story mode. Oh, the story mode was so dumb in Fight Forever because you always got the first number in the casino gauntlet or whatever it was. Like it was so. Every time I played it 2 different times. I was like, "Am I always just gonna get this number?" And people were like, "Yeah, this is the only thing you get." It's like, well, that's pointless. Like, just you got to give me. Like make it a little random, make it feel like it's a little bit like I got a chance here. Like you're immediately telling me I have no chance to win this thing. Like it was, the story mode wasn't good. Again, there's just no depth. Like you play through it once and it's like, all right, well, that's kind of the end of the game.
Yeah. That's too bad. Cause like I said, I think they had a real opportunity to have, it just could have been a lot bigger for them, for the company too. I mean, people still talk about those N64 games, the THQ AKI games and stuff. And like, there's a lot of people I know who weren't even wrestling fans and still aren't, but they know WCW because they played WCW NWO Revenge throughout their childhood because it was just such an awesome game. Even, excuse me, even those games had randomness in the storylines even back then. I remember, I think it was WrestleMania 2000 where randomly like the Undertaker would could just take the title from you. Like it made it to where it was actually unpredictable. Like I would play through the story. There was all these different storylines for different characters and different paths you could take in WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy and all this. It was just, it really feels like they just massively regressed these games over time. And like we've said, a lot of it I think has to do with competition, and a lot of it is like they want to make these simulation games that look as realistic as possible, and they're forfeiting the funness of the actual game in the process. But anyway, we can move on, but I'm happy we talked some video games this morning. I am a gamer, so I do spend a lot of my time playing video games when I'm not kind of in my downtime. So, we used to do those Twitch streams playing Mario Kart and stuff. Those were fun.
I basically only play NBA 2K nowadays. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's get into wrestling. By the way, guys, we're about 20 minutes into this video, and leave a thumbs up on the video. That helps us out. You can leave us a super chat, get your question, comment, statement read on the air. Subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed to the channel. Check out the shorts I've been making. That makes me feel good as well. I'm going to start making some shorts for this show. I made some shorts this past week for In the Weeds, so a lot of fun stuff. I'll make a short on like complaining about Madden. Those will probably honestly hit really well if we're if I'm being honest. Like that would be like, oh, cool. People who complain about Madden. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Relatable. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. All right, let's get into it. WWE Spotlight.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Kevin Owens hit a pile driver on Randy Orton, and Randy Orton now has a cervical contusion. I believe that's what they called it. And he's going to be out for a very long time. Maybe he'll be back next week. We shall see. But they certainly sold this thing like it was a big deal. He hit this pile driver. They stretchered him out. Cody got all sad and was crying in the ambulance with Randy. And Kevin did not care one bit about this man's neck or this other man's feelings. What'd you make of this angle, Jensen?
Yeah, when's the last time a powerbomb was hit in the WWE? Was it Punk and Cena? That match, like
that's the last one I can recall. It may have happened, since then, because I feel like a destroyer has been hit at some point.
Yeah, Bad Bunny was doing destroyers.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, so like they've done pile drivers, but not. They certainly haven't sold it like this of like, oh boy, pile driver. Like I thought they sold this really well. Corey Graves was talking about this move has been banned for years for a reason. Like the gravitas, they made this thing seem like the most devastating maneuver in the entire industry.
Yeah, well, so I don't have any problem with them establishing or reestablishing, the pile driver as a dangerous move, like in kayfabe for the storyline. I mean, because at the end of the day, I know we've seen more than just Bad Bunny do those destroyers. I'm pretty sure they're done on NXT occasionally as well. I just can't put my finger on like who, but I actually know Chase. I've seen Andre Chase do that move. But it's interesting because you would think that'd be more dangerous, but maybe it isn't because it's more of like a sunset flip. As long as your head doesn't come near the mat, like, you know. And by the way, I mean, I even put it in the thumbnail for the show today. It looked like Randy Orton's head was about 3 feet off the mat, like when he came down. So it's not like it was, you know,
it was a very safe pile driver.
Yes, it was very safe pile driver. Which once again, I don't have a problem with. Like, I would rather be a safe pile driver than like them want to make it look realistic and something bad actually happens. So this got to be good on like the camera angle, so it doesn't look like too obvious. I feel like, but maybe that's part of it. I mean, I know this probably sounds weird to say, and this is like almost like a conspiracy type thing to point out, but sometimes I feel like WWE, I don't think they're ever showing things specifically to make things look quote unquote fake, but is there really any harm in like making it pretty clear that this is being done safe? Like, because so many kids watch the show. I remember when they banned the curb stomp from Seth Rollins and stuff. You know, part of that also goes into it with me too, is like maybe they're almost in, I don't know if they'd ever do that or not, but it's almost like you might want to actually intentionally show the audience like that Orton's head isn't getting smashed into the ground so that people don't try this. You know what I mean? Like, because they consider it such a dangerous move, and they've, you know, obviously, I know when Steve Austin got injured, it was like the tombstone sit out version. It was a little bit different, but still, I mean, so I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that out there too. Like, I think that this was done safe on purpose. Not necessarily that the crowd was supposed to see how safe it was, but on the flip side, like it was done very, very safe. Anyways, I think this is also foreshadowing a package pile driver, because when we saw Sami Zayn do the brain buster at WrestleMania on Gunther, one of the first things I thought of was like, oh, nice. Like maybe some of these guys are going to start doing some of these like quote unquote banned moves that they've been like holding out on doing for a long time. It's a new regime in the WWE. They're probably a lot more lenient when it comes to ideas and doing certain moves and stuff like that. And of course, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are going to be linked in my mind forever. And one of the coolest moves out there, I mean, we see it on the indies, you know, every single show now, a package pile driver, but we've never seen one in the WWE. Owens has kind of teased it in the past where he would do that move where he'd kind of like pull him up into like almost like a side power bomb out of that position, but it almost like always teasing or alluding to the package pile driver. But anyway, I think that's going to be like, I think he'll do it super, super occasionally, like Sami Zayn with the top rope brainbuster. Like we've only seen him do that once in the WWE. I don't know if he's done it since, but I'd imagine if he does continue to do it, it'll only be on big matches, maybe like a couple times a year, or like just at WrestleMania. And I think the package pile driver, the same for Owens, you know, obviously assuming that the WWE will let him do the move. Because that's also a safe move. It's the same type of thing. You can probably even have more control over your opponent when you hold them the way you're holding them for a package pile driver. You just got to make sure their heads don't actually hit the ground, obviously. That's the big thing. But I think the WWE audience would pop massively for a package pile driver. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like so much of the audience and the fan base hasn't seen that before. And you can make that like a super finisher for Owens. Like, you know, for a guy who's already got a pretty sick move set. I mean, all the stuff he does off the top rope, we got the package power or the pop-up power bomb, we got the stunner, all the stuff that he does. You add that package pile driver in as like a super finisher for like WrestleManias. Like that's pretty badass. And you can maybe win a big match with that or something. So that's kind of where my head was at when I saw him do the pile driver. I was like thinking package pile driver because he's so synonymous with that move. And then also, I obviously don't have any problem with them, you know, really playing up the fact that this is a dangerous move, and that's why Randy Orton's hurt and why this is so serious and why he's injured. And it makes Kevin Owens look even more psychotic, which is what they need to be doing with him. Like I love Kevin Owens as a heel, and I think that they should push him, and you know, I think this adds to his character as a heel. So, you know, I thought this was pretty cool. It was unexpected when I saw that this happened. I was like, oh damn, I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? I think it worked.
He should beat Cody with the package pile driver.
If he's gonna beat Cody, if he's going to, I would prefer that he does that move because it's like it's so brutal that like it quote unquote helps protect Cody a little bit too. But I obviously don't think that he should beat Cody for the championship, but I do think that, you know, I think he should win a huge match with that move, though, for sure.
I think he might use it at WrestleMania, potentially. You mentioned Sami Zayn using the brainbuster. on Gunther. And Sammy kind of talked about like, yeah, it's a move that don't really use. You break it out for these big matches and you kind of keep the specialness of it. And it would feel the same way with Owens if he basically only used it at WrestleMania. You know, he could maybe use a different pile driver against Cody, but now the thing that they've like really set up is like the tease of it will just get the crowd excited.
Yes.
Like the moment he stuffs Cody or Randy like between his legs and like tries to pick him up and everything, the crowd's gonna like, oh, like they know like what this move means. And that like just selling that is a big deal. And that's a big thing they accomplished by doing the angle in this way is they've now sold moments in the future when Kevin tries to set this up to potentially pile drive again, Randy or Cody.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to, you know, all those teases Cody did at the pedigree for so long, same type of thing. You get this big reaction for just the setup of a move. And then in AEW, Cody was turning them into like, you know, tiger drivers and J drillers and stuff like that. But then when he came to WWE, he started hitting the pedigree, which is another miss by AEW because they could have had that moment. Like they teased that moment on their television, Cody hitting a pedigree for months. And then Cody paid it off in the WWE. It's like, ugh. They miss out so much with Cody, dude. So much. But that's a whole other conversation and a rabbit hole in itself. But
or did Cody miss out on things himself?
No, it's impossible to say that considering where Cody's at right now as the WWE champion.
Cody could have done the pedigree in AEW. I don't think it was AEW being like, no, hold off. Like Cody could have easily said, like, yeah, I'm gonna hit the pedigree in this match, and that be that.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm like 99% sure you're right. But the fact of the matter is it did wind up getting paid off in the other company. And a lot of Cody's built up equity and everything that he did, like this obviously isn't a knock. This is a good for everybody I'm about to mention, but you know, it's just one of those things, right? Like Cody, everyone knows the story. I don't have to go down the whole path, but this guy did so much to build this American Nightmare character in all these fans that got behind him and what they did with Ring of Honor and with New Japan and with AEW starting and everything he did on the indies and just all the stuff Cody was involved in to build this American Nightmare character to the point where the WWE wanted that product to come to the WWE. They weren't like, we want Dashy Cody Rhodes, we want Stardust. They were like, nope, we want to buy that package. And AEW had that package. Like they had it. And now that package is the top star in all of wrestling in the other company. So like as an AEW fan, there's a lot of disappointment on my end how that all was fumbled, you know, in my opinion. But as a Cody fan, I'm super stoked because he's got the top championship in wrestling and he's been wanting it for his entire life. So I mean, and I've wanted to see it for, you know, decades. So anyways, I don't know how we even started talking about Cody, but I mean, it's
because
my
everything
show, so
links back to Cody.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. but no, you brought it up because you said that Cody should get beat by a package power driver. That's what
I still believe that.
I know. I know you do. I know you do.
At some point, he's got to lose this title.
Yeah, but it won't be till. I mean, he's at least getting to WrestleMania with this thing, at least. And if I were them, I'd keep it on him through WrestleMania till another, you know, at least another WrestleMania. Like we just saw Roman have this title for a long time. I'm not saying that everybody has to have a Roman.
Yeah,
Reigns
people complained about that.
Yeah, but a big part of that complaint was that Roman wasn't around. Cody's more than around. Like he's doing house shows with the title. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, but they're cutting those down, so who cares?
Yeah, but he's still working more than Roman was working when Roman was the champion. I think that was a big part of the issue with Roman was for the last like couple years of his reign, he defended the title like 5 times or whatever. Like
good. Doesn't need to be defended that often.
On one hand, I agree. On the other hand, I don't. Like, you know, because people used to knock Brock Lesnar for that too. It was the same kind of complaints that Roman would get, where it was like Brock's the champion and he's never around. He's part-time. But then it was even worse because they didn't have the 2 titles at the time. I don't think.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
there was
just
like
the
the US champion kind of became like the de facto main champion for a while. And that was lame. So I get all sides of these arguments. You know, I'm not going to say like one idea is right or wrong when it comes to this stuff, but I'm not opposed to the idea of your champion being an attraction, like it being a big deal, because it was a big deal anytime that Roman wrestled. But Cody's a different type of champion, and he does the work every day, and that's what separates him from the others. Is he's showing up to work all the time, and he's defending the championship and building up a championship resume. And maybe at some point, I mean, definitely at some point, he'll work less dates and stuff, I'm sure. You know, but that's not this time. He knows what opportunity this is too. He's waited his entire life. He's worked his entire life for this opportunity. Like he's always talking about being QB1 and wanting the ball. Like
sometimes QB1 loses.
Yeah, but then they get replaced, and you don't want that to happen.
He'll be okay if he loses the title for a month or 2.
Oh, if you're talking about the idea of him losing and then winning it back before WrestleMania, like,
well, yeah, I think he's going to go into WrestleMania as the champion. I don't think there's any question about that. But
okay, well, we're on the same page when it comes to that. I don't see any need for him to lose the title before that, but there's maybe a good story there where that's
Kevin Owens beats him.
Yeah, I'm not even, like I've said before, I love Kevin Owens. He's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. As
Kevin Owens should beat him at Survivor Series.
I'm not going to go that far because I'm always going to choose Cody, and you know this. I even chose Cody over Gunther, and everybody said I was wrong. Everybody. And I was right.
Well, that doesn't make... I mean, you were right for your prediction. That doesn't make the decision, right?
Well, that's all subjective, right? All right, what was our next topic? Unless you have anything else about Owens. By the way, everybody, my shoot job has gotten a little more lenient with my hours, so we have an extra, 10 minutes if we need it at the end of the show. I don't have to rush out so fast, so... We've been pretty slow to get into the topics. But.
I like that WWE is adding some gravitas to something like this, because we've been so conditioned to think that, hey, this stuff doesn't mean anything. Like, we see it every match. We see it every move. This is not a knock on AEW. I'm using it as a comparison. Malachi Black took a spike pile driver on the apron last night, and he was up celebrating the victory at the end of the match with Brody King. I like that WWE is trying to show, and look, AEW did this with the Tiger Driver. So they do it. There's examples of AEW doing this as well. It's okay to act like, yeah, these moves really hurt, and these moves can, injure you and put you out of action for a long time. We don't need everyone to basically play superhuman and fighting spirit, strong style, and pop right up after doing this kind of stuff. Like, it works in some aspects, but other times, it's nice to see, oh shit, he hit a pile driver. He might be out for a couple months now because he's had neck surgery. He's had, spinal fusion surgery and all this stuff. So this move is going to certainly affect him more. Stuff like that is good to see in wrestling, because again, too often we just think like, a lot of people don't like the superhuman stuff, especially in matches, because it gets overdone. And I'm probably one of those people. Like, it becomes too much for a lot of matches. Like, all right, cool. You've kicked out of every single move possible. Like, what's the actual finish here? What are we doing? So it is nice to see moves like this try to mean a little bit more.
Well, it's a case of what's old is new again too. Not just the move itself, the pile driver, but this is like old school Memphis wrestling stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, which still works to this day, so, yeah, we're on the same. I think everyone's on the same page as far as like, no one really expected to see it, but I do think that they need to. That was an interesting comparison though with that and the Tiger Driver in AEW, because they are doing a similar thing with that. The thing that's weird to me about that move is that, well, I shouldn't say weird. They made it a storyline based off of, didn't they start making it a real thing when he almost hurt, was it Danielson with it?
Yeah, Ospreay hurt Danielson with it.
Yeah. But like before that, he was hitting that move not even as a finisher. Like even in Impact, he had that banger with Speedball, if you remember. That match was awesome. And I remember he hit a Tiger Driver in that match and Speedball kicked out. You know what I mean? So it's like, but you know, that's literally
he hit it against
apples to
Kenny.
oranges. Yeah.
Yeah, he hit it against Kenny at Forbidden Door, and I don't think that was the finish from
No,
what
it
I
wasn't.
recall.
It's
Yeah.
just become the finish, I think, just now, like since the most recent since the why am I blanking? Well, I'm so bad at remembering the pay-per-view names for the AEW shows. I'm so bad at it.
The
Like,
last
old
pay-per-view was
names.
Wrestle Dream.
And
But
that was where he hit it.
No, he hit it against MJF at All In. That was
All In. That was it. That was it. It was All In. I was totally blanking. Yeah, but it's the MJF match, and now it's been established as like if you hit that move, it's over. So
now what they basically have to do is no one can hit any type of pile driver. No destroyer, no tombstone, like nothing. Because that's also where AEW kind of screwed up. And I don't think it was through their I mean, it's somebody's fault because they, at the end of the day, it was on television. They allowed it to happen. Ospreay hit the Tiger Driver on Bryan and then Shoulder Moore. And then it's like, oh, this move is so devastating. It injured this man. It's going to end his career. And then Queen Aminata and Athena did it in their ROH title match. And there was a kick out. And it's like, wait, is this move devastating or not? Like she just kicked out of it. What are we doing here? Again, whether they decided we're going to put this in there, whether an agent was like, yeah, sure, go, like whatever happened, it aired on their television. I know it's ROH. Nobody really pays attention. Will Ospreay's burying the ROH TV title. So it clearly doesn't mean anything. But for WWE, they have to make sure like no one hits a pile driver. Whatever we do, no pile drivers on television, because we've made this thing out to be it could end Randy Orton's career. So we can't just have it be done in a random match and it mean nothing. So whoever's producing, whoever's putting stuff together, Triple H, send out a memo, whatever you got to do, no pile drivers. NXT, same thing. Because if it's on NXT, that's no different than it being on ROH. Just don't do it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think that they shouldn't have too much of a problem. NXT might have to like keep the closest eye on something like that, but to my knowledge, I don't think that they're gonna have much of a problem with that on the WWE because nobody really uses like Undertaker's done. I don't see them giving that move to anyone else because it's so synonymous with him. Maybe at some point someone will start doing it, but like no one else really does any kind of version of a pile driver that I can think of. You know what I mean? So like someone would have to really go out of their way to do it, you know? So I think that'll be safe. But but I'm totally with you. If there was multiple wrestlers out there that were hitting versions of pile drivers, then they would have to stop immediately to help with this angle with Owens for sure. With Owens and Orton.
If anybody's using it in NXT, I can't off the top of my head think of anybody. You mentioned Andre Chase maybe using like a destroyer, and that's definitely he's wrestling this coming up week as well against Rich Holland. Somebody's got to tell him, yeah, don't use that move. And there's obviously going to be pay-per-views between now and whenever Randy returns. Like deadline's not till December 7th, I believe. So they got a little bit of time. But yeah, tell all these people, no destroyers, no pile drivers, no versions of pile drivers, none of that. We got to sell this angle. And hopefully everyone's on board and understands that. Yes. WWE ID. They started announcing wrestlers on November 7th. We talked a little bit about it previously, like what it could mean and who could be part of it. And they announced the ID schools and everything. But so the talents they've announced so far: Bryce Donovan, Cappuccino Jones, Ice Williams, It's Gal, Jack Summit, aka Jack Cartwheel, Marcus Mathers, Sam Hardway Holloway, Sean Legacy, Zeta Steel, Zara Zacher. Those are the talents that have been announced so far, and there are going to be more talents announced in the coming days. Actually, starting tonight, Beyond Wrestling, they're going to announce talents at Chaotic tomorrow. They're going to announce talents at 5-Star Pro on Sunday and Northern Crown on Sunday as well. So 4 talents at the very least within the next few days, and then they might announce more online that just aren't at the shows, because the only one that's been announced so far at the shows was Ice Williams. He was announced at the Reality of Wrestling show. Everyone else was just an online announcement.
Yes. Yeah. And Gal was like at the Performance Center when he got his Regal. It was cool seeing Regal give Mathers and Hardway Holloway their I guess they're what do you call it? I guess contract, I guess. Is that what they're just handing them in the...
It just looked like a folder, like a WWE ID folder. I guess it's a contract that's in there. Just giving them their ID. They got IDs.
Yes. So I love this program. We're going to talk about it in the interview that y'all are going to hear with Carmen Michael here as well. At the end of the show, we talk about the ID program. I gave my thoughts on each individual talent that's been ID'd so far on the Weekender. So if you want like a deep dive, more of a deep dive on all these talents, check that out over at FightfulSelect.com. But there's a good tie-in actually. There's a good tie-in actually with one of the talents that we were just talking about, and one of the talents that got ID'd. So I've been saying this for a very long time, and I'm not going to sit here and say that there are people in major companies that pay any attention to this show or pay any attention to the Weekender. I'm not going to say that. But I mean, I've been talking about promoting a lot of these people for a while, and I'm not the only one, obviously. It's not on WWE's radar. It's on a lot of people's radar. But one thing in specific I am waiting to see, and if it happens, I am going to take credit. So we've talked about Andre Chase. Obviously, Chase U, got the group. I've been saying for years that the WWE should sign Jack Cartwheel and put him in Chase U. I've been saying that for years. If that winds up happening,
well, Chase U might not exist this time next week.
Well, if it does, I'm just saying, like, it was such a slam dunk of an idea. And I'm just saying, like, there's certain things where I'm like, if these things wind up happening, I'm going to be really happy to see it, because some of my ideas might wind up, like, coming true. You know, a lot of these people, like Marcus Mathers, we've been talking about, like, that one of the best guys in the Indies for a while. I mean, even when we interviewed Cruel, we were like, you know, who even has a chance of beating you for this title? And, you know, obviously he's pretty much like, well, nobody. I'm going to, like, be a champion forever. It's like the idea, which I love. But he was like, Marcus Mathers is like maybe someone, you know what I mean? Like, Mathers is a name this guy has been good for so long, since he was a literal teenager. And, you know, it's cool too, because like when you see these announcements, like Mathers, for instance, they say it was scouted from GCW. Obviously he works all over the place, but it's cool to seeing like WWE shouting out GCW. It's cool seeing WWE shouting out IWC, International Wrestling Cartel, when they announced Hardway Holloway. Hardway Holloway is another guy. Like, this dude has only been wrestling for 2 years. If y'all go back and listen to, there was an episode of The Weekender I did probably within the last few months, because we've been covering Holloway on that show for like the last 2 years since he's been around. And I didn't realize until like a couple months ago, I was like, how long has this guy even been around? Like, he's so good, and he had just won the IWC Super Indie tournament and stuff. And I was like, this guy's got to be on someone's radar, because he's got the size, he's got the talent. And I looked and I was like, 2 years. I was like, I thought this guy was like a veteran with how good he is. Like, this is insane that some of these people that they're bringing into this program have like hardly any experience. Like, Cappuccino Jones hasn't been around for very long. And it's really cool to see, because it's like the WWE is Zara Zacher hasn't been around a long time. Like, a lot of these talent, some of them have, like, some of these people have been around, 8-10 years that they've signed, but some of them are like within like 2 years of being around. And I like that too, because it's like the WWE isn't sitting on their hands and just being like, we're not interested just because you haven't, 10-year over talent or whatever. They're seeing people that they can mold and get in with before the rest of the wrestling world does and stuff. So like, I have a ton of like scattered thoughts on this stuff, obviously, but obviously I'm a big fan of the people that they're bringing in. They're bringing in people from all different backgrounds, with all different styles, with all different levels of experience. And I think this is going to be a great thing for these talents, and hopefully for the WWE, because I don't think that like every single one of the people that gets ID'd is going to be necessarily like a long-term success story in the WWE, but some of them will be, and then some of them will wind up being big deals in other companies and stuff. So this is very, very cool. And I can go on and on about like all these talents. Obviously, like Jack Cartwheel, we've had on the show multiple times. I think that if y'all want to know more about him, just listen to the interviews we've done with him. But that's a guy you knew from day one. I remember seeing him wrestling out of the Houston area for like New Texas and maybe Loco. And I remember then my buddy Doug, who I used to do a show with, he would go to those shows live. And I remember him hitting me up and specifically being like, he had a few names on the list. And one of them, he was like, dude, this guy Jack Cartwheel is like, he's the real deal. And I was like, yeah, man. And like, he had like just started, and like, you knew from day one, the guy had this different type of charisma, a different level of athleticism, the physique, the dedication, the way the ability to get over everywhere he wrestles immediately. So it's like, I'm just super happy to see that the WWE is noticing these talents too. And I'm joking when I say the WWE is like taking my ideas. Obviously they aren't, but it's just cool to know that like some of the things that I've been thinking about and some of the talents that I've been behind for a long time now for some of these talents, the WWE has also been paying attention and they're making offers to these guys and these girls and stuff. So yeah, this is badass. How do you, I can go on and on about all these people, but like, how do you feel about what we've seen from the ID program and any talents that you want to point out?
I'd like to just know more about the program overall. It is very cool that they are paying attention to these independent wrestlers. It's good opportunities for them. I hope they're getting more money out of it. I hope whether they can increase their fee on the independent scene or WWE is paying them, however that works out, I hope they're just getting more money in general. It doesn't look like it has any type of booking influence. Like Jack Cartwheel faced Nick Wayne at the DDT and DEFY show, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and Nick Wayne won. So these talents can clearly lose on the independent scene. I do think there is a small portion of the audience that will check out some of these independent shows to see these wrestlers a little bit more.
Yes.
If you're online and you see, oh, hey, who's this Jack Cartwheel guy? If you're a WWE fan and you're like kind of strictly a WWE fan, maybe you will go and search for sort of a Jack Cartwheel match. Maybe. I'm not saying this is going to be a large portion of the audience.
No, this is a good point you're making. It really is, because they're literally on the ID X account. They're literally retweeting and telling people like to go watch IWTV and go watch Triller TV Plus. Like they're literally promoting these shows, hoping the fans are going to follow these talents over. What you're saying right now is a humongous point that I missed.
And hopefully, again, fans will actually do that. There are a lot of fans that don't care to do that kind of stuff. And they're just going to, ask, oh, who's this person? Why should I care about him? But if you even create one or two new fans out of this, then it's a win for hopefully these wrestlers and these promotions.
Yes.
The thing that I'm most curious about is sort of how the contract does work. Again, are they getting paid a little bit more? And if another company, so basically my understanding of it, I believe this is what Dave has reported, it's basically a right of first refusal. So if AEW comes with an offer to, we'll use Jack as an example, and they offer him a deal, WWE can say, no, we want to sign you. And then Jack has to take that deal, or does Jack have the option? Is it a matching deal? And what I mean by matching is if AEW comes and says, we're going to offer you $200,000 a year, does WWE have to match that at $200,000, or is it in it of Jack's only getting paid $100,000 a year in his WWE contract? And WWE is like, oh, well, we're going to execute our contract, which only pays you $100,000, but because you're part of the ID program, even though they're offering you $200,000, you got to take our deal.
Right.
Like, these are things that I'm curious about.
Yeah. That's a really, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You have more, because
No, that's basically, that was it. I'm curious about those type of things.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. That's because my assumption, I could be completely wrong, but my assumption when we talked about this last week after the announcement of the program was made was I figured that they would go outside of the schools to sign talents all over, which is what they're doing, which is but it's cool that they also obviously have the relationships with the schools that they have relationships with. But one of my big things that I was assuming was they were going to get some sort of financial like stipend, so like something to where, it's making it because there has to be incentive beyond just the WWE knowing you exist, right? Like, I mean, because like what I think would be valuable for a talent, this is me from the outside looking in, and I have not talked to any of these people who have been ID'd. We hope to get some of them on the show soon, though. But what I would be looking for personally is just once again some sort of stipend where WWE is just paying me a little extra money to make my life easier, so I don't have to have a shoot job, or I can maybe go part-time with a shoot job and stuff like that. Like that's the kind of thing. It's almost like, not to get political, but it's almost like Andrew Yang's idea of universal basic income, where like everyone in the United States would just get $1,000 a month just like for being a citizen, because it just helps with bills and it helps with jobs becoming automated and stuff like that. It's just a nice little cushion to have just an extra $1,000 in your pocket that you can do whatever you want with. It's similar kind of idea with this, where it's like, even if it was an extra 50 or $100 a week or whatever, that like, the WWE might be able to provide some of these talents. That's a complete game changer for some of these people, and the decision that they can make on, once again, maybe quitting a full-time job or going part-time with their job, or just having extra gas money to get from show to show. So it would be really nice if something like that was going on. But I am very interested in the idea of the contract and the matching and the first refusal that you were just talking about, because we know these terms through sports, because these, we know how this stuff works, but to the general wrestling audience, this would be kind of a new concept, I think, to a lot of people, because that's an interesting thing. I don't know how it works either, obviously, but I don't know. It's hard for me to speculate, because I could see it going both ways. I could see it being something where WWE says, we've ID'd you, and if you accept this contract, the way our program works is you would make whatever that amount of money is, but they also have the first refusal. So if a company offered them more money, like you said, do they have to match it, or does the WWE have the right to then basically force them into the offer that they originally had in the contract? But the only reason they're executing the contract is because another company was interested. And like, that's kind of a weird position to be in as a wrestler too. You know what I mean? Because it's like you're putting your eggs in the WWE basket and basically just hoping that at some point that they're going to pull the trigger and like fully bring you in, but you're risking potentially being signed by another company, maybe for more money. And there's a yin and a yang to it, right? There's a double-edged sword. It's a seesaw, whatever you want to say. Because on one hand, WWE ID is a foot in the door to the company. On the other hand, you might be able to go to like AEW, for instance, wrestle there for like 2 years, become a star on television, and now your leverage is like way higher to sign a deal with the WWE 2 years from now than it was if you were in the ID system potentially. So, but overall, I do think the ID program is a good thing. And I'm very excited, and the talents seem to be very excited about it and everything. So that's all good. But I think the things you brought up are super important, and I think that we eventually will find out more about how this stuff works. But for the time being, that would be a big question mark of how the contract matching and all that kind of stuff works.
If I'm Tony Khan, I'm just gonna figure this out. I'm gonna offer a contract, and maybe it's an overpay for a talent, but I'm
to what someone who's been announced already. Yeah.
And just be like, all right, let's see what this actually entails here. And I'm offering Jack Cartwheel again. Maybe it's an overpay, but I'm offering $300,000 and seeing what WWE has to do off of that. And then we get more about the system. They got the new rights deal. It's fine. They can pay Jack. They can use him on Collision and Rampage and ROH. There's a spot for Jack Cartwheel on that, one of those shows. So yeah, I'm just throwing it out there, Tony.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. And
see what it's about.
And it's not, and I guarantee you, if you've thought of it, so is Tony, especially Tony being a general manager in the NFL, like
general managers in the NFL, they don't like doing the like restricted free agent offer. That's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost, it's a unwritten rule like the restricted free agency. I don't think NFL has too much when it comes to unrestricted or when it comes to restricted free agency. So in the NHL, they have restricted free agency and they have offer sheets, and it works the same way of like, hey, if they're restricted free agent, that means they can only sign with us unless another team makes an offer. But if the other team makes an offer, we have the right to match. And if we don't match it, we get draft pick compensation. I can't recall if the NFL has something like that, but Tony, I'm sure, is aware of all of this just being part of sports. But again, it's very unwritten of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this because then you burn relationships with general managers and teams and everything. I think Tony's too concerned about burning relationships with WWE based on the contract tampering that may or may not happen throughout wrestling, because contracts aren't really a thing. Yeah, the Cyclops is better than Wolverine, the Lamar Jackson deal. Yes, like, so I know there is some type of restricted free agency and unwritten kind of rules of like, hey, don't do this kind of thing. Wrestling's a little bit different, where I don't think Tony's as worried about burning a relationship with WWE. So have him, Tony, just hold out there, just see what happens, because I don't think he looks like a bad guy if he does that. I don't think the perception of Tony changes. Either he's paying a wrestler a lot of money, and that obviously makes him look good, or he's forcing WWE to pay a wrestler a lot of money, or he's basically saying, hey, WWE didn't want to pay this guy this much, I'm going to pay him this much. And we learn more about the ID program out of this. Obviously, it hurts Tony's pockets, but if he's not paying my money at the end of the day,
I don't think that that's too much of an issue. Yeah, I think that's just smart business, and that's just smart. I know that WWE and AEW aren't like literal competition from the standpoint. I understand WWE is a lot bigger, but that's a competitive move that is smart. This is a smart strategic move on Tony's part as the owner of AEW to know how these deals are working that the other company is putting out there, and how they can work around them. There might be a talent that they really had their eyes on that they were like considering anyways. Because like you said, this would be great for the talent too. Imagine Jack Cartwheel, Bob was using him as the example, but imagine if Jack Cartwheel, that happened to him. And it's like, he went all of a sudden within like a couple weeks span from like being a somewhat niche independent talent that very, very big on the independent scene, but like the broader mainstream wrestling audience are just now finding out about Jack Cartwheel through the ID program. And within weeks, he's signed to a $300,000 AEW contract because he got ID'd and they didn't actually sign him. That's super interesting to think about, these kind of scenarios happening. But I'm 100% with you. Tony Khan, it would be a very smart business move, I think, on his part to do exactly what you said. Make a couple offers to some of these people who have been ID'd and find out how this works.
Maybe Jon Moxley can make the offer.
Over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. It was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
Yeah, I thought for a second you were going to say Jon Moxley was going to get ID'd. I was about to be so confused, but no, you're now that Jon Moxley runs AEW. I understand what you're saying. Sorry, go ahead.
Jon Moxley allegedly seized control of TBS last night, and he did that by cutting a promo and then running away from Orange Cassidy.
No, it was more than that. Okay, so
was it?
Yeah, I'm gonna miss stuff. I'm sure. I'm really bad about recapping stuff sometimes, but like, so Orange Cassidy comes out. He's in his all black, and he cuts a promo about how
good promo Moxley, about Orange Cassidy.
It was, and that's why I'm bringing it up, and that's why we can't just gloss over the entire segment as what you said it was. He did cut a very good promo, and it was based around the fact that Jon Moxley has the power, and the power is the AEW World Championship. Orange Cassidy also makes sure to remind everybody that he's defeated Jon Moxley in the past as well. So he's a credible threat to this title. And he said, I don't even like wrestling, and I've wrestled the most matches of anybody in this company. Like, that's how much I, but and then obviously this ties into Wheeler Yuta as well, who's been a big key to this, that I've been saying since the beginning of this whole BCC turning on Danielson, becoming the Death Rider story, I've been saying, Wheeler Yuta, keep your eye on this, because now they're even referring to him as a pawn on screen. And I was saying it from the beginning because they're attacking Orange Cassidy, who Yuta's close with. They attacked Chuck Taylor, who Yuta's close with. And they even basically looked like they were going to attack Yuta the other week, put a chair around his neck. And he didn't seem like he was in on what was going on until afterwards. And now they're even referring to him literally as a pawn. And Orange Cassidy is saying, I'm going to knock down the pawn so I can get to the king. So basically, I have to beat Wheeler Yuta and so to get to Jon Moxley. And Moxley is saying, basically saying Yuta's with them, and Orange Cassidy is essentially his judgment will eventually be clouded because these two guys are friends, but Yuta's not gonna hold back. So they're gonna have a match with one another. I'm looking forward to that. And then this all leads to, Darby Allin eventually attacking the Death Riders whenever they were leaving the arena. And also the conglomerate had been involved a little bit throughout this too, but not so much to talk about when it comes to everyone else really when it comes to this, but mainly Orange Cassidy and Darby. Darby does like the big jump. He's wearing like the Sting mask. And I love that he just straight up becomes Sting, right? I mean, like that's great. We've needed a new Sting for a long time. Like the old Sting is one of my favorites ever. You know that. I had you buy me the signed Sting figure during his last match, and you, as a true friend, you carry that thing around with you all show, which I still appreciate to this day. It's up on my wall right now. I love Sting, but I think it's just so cool that we have this opportunity where essentially the son of Sting in canon, Darby Allin, who was mentored by Sting, who was the tag team partner of Sting, is now basically Sting, and he's playing Sting to the Death Riders NWO. And it makes sense because it's Darby and his relationship with Sting. So I thought that was cool how he jumped at them and he attacked the Death Riders. And then we get to the backstage stuff where the Death Riders are going to leave Yuta to dry, which once again just keeps playing into the fact that they do not care about this. They are using this guy. And as they're leaving without Yuta, Darby Allin jumps into the back of the pickup truck with the Death Riders. So Claudio comes out of the truck, picks him up on his shoulder, like throws him into this garage door, and then does the big swing right into it. And that was gnarly. That looked awesome. And that reminded me kind of like, because there's a lot of these NWO Death Rider parallels, right? It reminded me kind of like when the NWO attacked WCW backstage, that famous, lawn dart with Kevin Nash and Rey Mysterio and stuff like that. And it has those kind of vibes to it, which, I personally do enjoy the story. Because I do think that the ultimate payoff is going to be Darby Allin beating Jon Moxley eventually to become the AEW World Champion. So I'm sure there's people that are down on this. Like I'm sure that this isn't everyone's cup of tea, but personally speaking, I do like the storyline, and I'm especially interested because of the Yuta stuff. And I know that's probably maybe part of the story that most people don't care about as much, but as somebody who was a fan of Yuta's on the indie scene and, Ring of Honor, and I am a big Yuta fan, and I do think it's cool that he's such a key part of this big storyline. So there's a lot of this that I can sink my teeth into as a wrestling fan, and I know that the matches are going to pay off because all these talents we're talking about are great in-ring wrestlers. So, yeah, that's how I feel. Overall, I liked it. It was much more than whatever you said it was, but it is weird that Moxley's like taking over TBS or whatever. I mean, like, I get some of this stuff. And also someone yelled out, "Go back to Roman Reigns" during the promo. And it was
the
like,
crowd last night was
dude, that was bad, especially when Swerve botched the city. And then all they could do the rest of the night was chant the right name of the city. And then the main event, even Brody King is out in the middle of is out in the ring, literally saying, trying to get the crowd to cheer during the match. Come on. So make someone make fucking noise. What the hell? And
look, on one hand, wasn't a good crowd. On the other hand, I always say this. Sometimes the crowd doesn't care because you ain't giving them anything to care about. And sure. I don't always think you can blame the crowd of like, oh, the show is bad. because the crowd is bad. The crowd doesn't care, so it's making the show bad. Well, is there anything that the crowd needs to care about? I don't know. You know, that clearly there wasn't a whole lot they cared about. The Moxley segments in their own little bubble have been good. I've said this on In the Weeds. I'll say it here. I guess my expectations were just too high. My expectations were this should feel like an overarching storyline that has consequences throughout the company. And it doesn't. It lives in its own little bubble. Private Party, who were part of the fighting group, no longer care about this invasion. They're the tag team champions now. Things are cool. Daniel Garcia, who was originally part of the group that was upset that they took out Bryan Danielson, doesn't care anymore. He's worried with Jack Perry. It's not an overarching thing. When you say something, when you put on the graphic, Jon Moxley is going to seize control of TBS. You set an expectation of, oh, Jon Moxley's going to go to a production truck. He's going to counter program Big Bang Theory. I joked of like, he needs to cut off Big Bang Theory at like 7:57. Like, nope, that's the end of that. AEW Dynamite starts now. Like, do something.
Sheldon been canceled yet? Because if you can take care of that for me, that would be
yeah, like when you say seize control of TBS, my expectation is a little bit higher than we're going to do the same thing we do every week of just come out, cut a promo, and get into a big brawl. My expectation just becomes a little bit different. Maybe sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's just different. This was just a segment on the show that was like any other segment that Jon Moxley has been doing. Not bad, honestly good. Like, I like the chaotic brawl. I like the backstage brawl. Darby getting swung into the garage door was fantastic. Darby's a wild man. I'm typically connected to anything he does because he just, like, anything he does is always crazy. And it's like, oh, geez, this guy. And I'm connected with the stuff Moxley does on the whole. I love Orange Cassidy. People know. I've said Orange Cassidy is the best booked wrestler since AEW started. He's been the most consistent wrestler since
you were here for Halloween.
Yeah. Like, so I'm all in on what he does. And my expectation for this story since it started has just been a little bit higher. And I think it could have been more. And I think it started as something more. And it now lives in its own little bubble, just like the Hurt Business lives in their bubble, just like the Don Callis family lives in their bubble. They're just wrestling storylines that don't connect to each other. And like, that's not necessarily bad. That's inherently kind of what wrestling typically is. I think WWE's done a pretty good job of connecting different things over the past few years. I think AEW had a real opportunity to connect different things with this storyline, and it hasn't. You know, when you got the Death Rider faction, it's like, oh, we're going to take over TBS. We're going to take over AEW. But then the Hurt Business is kind of doing the same thing. It's like, well, the Hurt Business is kind of calling their own shots and taking over. The Don Callis family's kind of calling their own shots and taking it. Was like, what separates these factions from just being big bad heel faction? They're all sort of the same type of thing. They just got different names and the segments are slightly different. But at the end of the day, they're all kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the Elite attempted it before all of this. Remember how much flack Cody would get for the Cody verse? This isn't to go down a Cody rabbit hole, but it feels like we have multiple Cody verses right now, right? It's like all these stories that are kind of their own stories that are all very similar in a lot of ways. I think you're totally right. JD Drake also got attacked. I forgot to mention that. I've always liked JD Drake also. That guy is super slept on. He's incredibly talented, JD Drake. I feel like he was mega wasted in that was it the Sidemen or whatever they called him? The Wingmen.
The Wingmen. Yeah.
The
Sidemen is that Logan Paul group.
That's KSI. Yeah. Shout out Lunchley. Hopefully if you buy it, you don't get any mold in your cheese.
Why are we gonna shout that out?
That was a backhanded. Everyone's finding mold in their Lunchleys.
Yeah.
They're having to recall them and stuff. That was an opposite of a shout out. That was a probably don't go anyway. I don't want to get sued by Mr. Beast. Never mind. Anyways, Logan Paul, he's intertwined because he's a wrestler. But anyway, JD Drake was massively wasted in that Wingman group for years in AEW, and I've always loved him as a part of the Workhorsemen. with Anthony Henry. Anthony Henry deals with a lot of injuries though, unfortunately, and but JD, even as a singles wrestler, is super slept on. So anyway, I hope they do more with him at some point. It'd be nice. But yeah, that's probably all I've got as far as the Death Riders and stuff going on right now with those groups.
Do you think that like it was just a homophone instead of C's TBS, it's C's TBS? Like Jon Moxley like sees it
looking at TBS.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so funny. So there's an episode of Always Sunny where they all go to the zoo. Have you ever seen that one? It's called the group.
I think so. Yes, actually. Is the texting one? Yes. Yeah.
And part of it is that joke where Dennis texts the group, or someone sends a text, and it's Dennis sends a text to the rest of the group, and it says that he's at the Sea Lions. Or no, he says Sea Lions. Oh, sorry, I'm it just says Sea Lions. The letter C and Lions. So Sea Lions is all the message says. So they can't figure out if he went to see the lions or he went to the Sea Lions.
Yeah.
So like that's the same bit that they. Yeah, Jon Moxley sees AEW. Jon Moxley is looking at AEW. He's not taking over AEW. That's so funny. Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. That would explain a lot. Honestly, that would explain a lot.
That's funny.
You will see Jon Moxley on TBS.
Yeah.
Factual. Adam Cole lost to Konosuke Takeshita. A lot of interference in this match. Roderick Strong did not lose to Lance Archer, so we will get Roderick Strong against MJF at Full Gear. And I guess Adam Cole will have to wait until World's End. This feud must continue.
Unless, we talked about it privately between us that, I guess there's still a chance that Adam Cole could get in if he wins another match. Or
it's possible because it's not first to 3 anymore, and it would just became, hey, win 3 matches. Theoretically, Adam Cole could just wrestle another match and win. Like, what's stopping him from doing that?
Right.
MJF ain't showing up to the shows. MJF gonna send in a red wine video package and be like, nope, you can't do that.
Right. Especially if like MJF isn't there or whatever, they find some loophole where Adam Cole could just get, some random wrestler and some enhancement talent in there and just beat him real quick and get in the match. But anyway, so we'll do the positives and then the negatives, and this will be pretty quick on my end. Takeshita shouldn't have lost, so like no problem there. Makes no sense that this third match wasn't Brody King, because the other 2 matches were members of the House of Black. Brody King, by the way, was by far the most over person in the main event last night. Like, by far.
Yeah.
So there's those things. On the flip side, personally, I would have liked to see Lance Archer beat Roddy, because I think like Lance Archer should be getting more in AEW, but that's another side conversation. We talked about that with him and Jake the Snake and everything from before. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to be totally blunt about it. And I've made these points before pretty much. Everyone pretty knows how I feel already. I don't care about this story at all. And I care even less if it's going to be Roderick Strong versus MJF one-on-one at the pay-per-view. The stories between Adam Cole and MJF, that's what headlined All In last year. That's what the whole stupid, goofy kangaroo kick and MJF turning babyface and all these best friends vignettes and all this stuff, but it got super, super over for a minute. And the whole terrible Undisputed Kingdom, just botch of a group. All these things have just been, in my opinion, a gigantic failure. I feel like Adam Cole is way less over right now than he was before he got injured. MJF's not even there. Roderick Strong shouldn't even be a part of the storyline. The Undisputed Kingdom are clearly heels, but being pseudo baby faces at the moment. I don't care at all about any of this. And I have no doubt, like there's no chance in hell if there's a one-on-one match that Roderick Strong's going to lose to MJF, like obviously. So yeah, I hate this. Like I hate this. I hate everything about this. And they shouldn't have even been in a position to have Takeshita versus Adam Cole to begin with. Takeshita should just be defending the international championship against people unrelated to this. And Adam Cole should have wrestled Brody King, because that would have made sense. And none of this makes sense. I hate it. I hate it. I like the talents involved, but I hate the story.
Well, guess what? It's going to continue until December.
I know. But I've hated it since before these people even came back from injury. I was like, this Undisputed Kingdom thing is ass. I said it every week. I was like, this is not going to work. Even when MJF and Adam Cole come back, it's not going to work. And I was saying it when MJF was a babyface. I was like, they need to immediately reverse this as much as they possibly can. This is not going to work long term. Like, and it wasn't just me, obviously. A lot of people were calling it. A lot of stuff was super predictable, but they're having to like fit like a circle in a square peg or whatever, like constantly with this, because they're having to backtrack and try to make sense of something that they just completely botched, but it's a story that they've been trying to tell for over a year. So it's like they can't just do away with it. They had opportunities to do away with it up to now, but now they're just in too deep. And it's like quicksand. Like they're just in too deep. They can't get out of it, and they have to try to pay this off. But I don't think anybody cares.
What you're saying is they're in too deep, but they're trying to keep up above in their head instead of going under.
What band was that? It's on Glory. Some 41.
Yeah.
It's on Glory. That was kind of close.
They should have just ended it immediately. Like they should have just had a match, put it on Dynamite, and just be like, all right, let's settle this. Let's get this out of the way. None of this win 3 matches nonsense.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't like what you did to me. All right, I don't like what you did to me. Let's just fight. And that'd be the end of it.
Yeah, 100%. And everyone would have been done. And everyone would be fine with that. Just have the match and just move on. I mean, was that song, by the way, was that Fat Lip? Was that what that song was called?
No, that's literally In Too Deep.
What was Fat Lip? Dude, this is unzipping me from some memories. Like I haven't listened to a lot of these songs in a while. Anyways, sorry. We can move on. I've still got about 20 minutes. I've still got about 20 minutes before I got to clock into work now. So I don't have to super rush, which is nice. I don't have a whole lot more to say about some 41. Obviously, I don't know the songs. I know the songs, but I'm getting all the titles messed up.
Talking about Sum 41's way better than talking about wrestling. Kidding me? Way better.
Yeah, that was definitely an era of music. That was like the early 2000s. My favorite era of music is like the late 90s. I love like the pop songs, the pop music from the 90s. That's when like in the interview you're about to hear, Carmen Michael jokes that Dump Sanders is a big boy band fan, and I was like, what? And he was kidding about it, but I actually, dude, I grew up on Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all that stuff.
Were you Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
BSB for life.
Yeah.
And also, dude, and I could literally talk about this guy for the next hour. Aaron Carter, bro. Aaron Carter. R.I.P. to the legend Aaron Carter.
You know what we should talk about instead of wrestling? There's some big fights this weekend. I mean, we can talk about it.
Oh yeah. We got Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought of Aaron Carter because he had that silly fight against Lamar Odom, and then I thought of
his ass.
Silly fights that we're gonna have with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul and John Jones and Stipe Miocic.
Yeah, good fight weekend, dude. Aaron Carter, I will stand by this all day, bro. If that fight he had with Lamar Odom, they had smaller gloves, or I think they also wore headgear for the fight. Aaron Carter, to his credit, started that fight off by landing like 10 unanswered strikes to the head, before Lamar even knew it hit him. And the fact that Aaron Carter took that fight with that size mismatch, I mean, it was completely insane that even was allowed to happen. And then he wound up getting screwed over for money because Fight TV, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of all of that, but apparently they didn't hit their thresholds of buys for certain payouts because the show didn't do super well because, it was Aaron Carter versus Lamar Odom. But so apparently Aaron Carter didn't get paid hardly anything to do that fight either. And people can say what they want about that guy. Like he definitely it was rough towards the end. Like he got the weird face tattoos and like tried to become a SoundCloud rapper and got in all these like online beefs and was obviously heavily using drugs and overdosed. You know, he ended his life with an accidental overdose, you know, but all that stuff, honestly, like, I do sympathize, because I can only imagine with all the stuff that we constantly are finding out about, like Hollywood and the movie industry and all this scummy, just terrible stuff that goes on in these industries. Think about back in the 90s, a kid like him being involved with all these adults at these adult parties and all. Like, I can only imagine the terrible stuff that kid probably had to go through. And then he was always in fights with his own family. His family was taking money from him. And it was just one of those things where, like, he caused a lot of his own problems. Don't get me wrong. Like, there was a lot of avoidable stuff, but he got super clowned on towards the end of his life. And I think that he really just needed help, and nobody around him was actually helping him. They were all just leeches constantly trying to use him. And it was really sad to see. It really was. Because I unironically, if you listen to some of his music, I'm not talking about, like, I mean, you can go back and listen to, like, Aaron's Party and, like, How I Beat Shaq and all that kind of stuff, the hood classics.
Bangers.
But even his, like, more recent music from, like, the last decade, like Fool's Gold and I think there's like a handful of songs.
What? Dude, Aaron Carter made music?
Dude, Aaron Carter made good music within, like, the last 10 years, like, legitimately good music. And it was always just overshadowed by how crazy he was going, and he couldn't stay out of his own way. But he has some good music. And he could have just, like, he would have never become, like, another, like, Justin Bieber level star probably, but he would have had, like, a good, solid, just, like, career going out there and performing. He had a song called Recovery that was really good. Like, he has some legit, he was a legitimately great musician, Aaron Carter. He really was. He produced a lot of his own beats, his own music. He's a great vocalist. Like, he honestly, like, I am a fan of his, and I feel bad that he was done the way that he was at the end of his life by so many people. But once again, a lot of it is on himself, like, for not getting out of some of these situations. But yeah, anyways, I'm glad I got a chance to talk about Aaron Carter, because I wanted to interview him before he passed away. I really did. We actually followed each other on X, because I was one of the few people, I was, like, always defending this guy. I would go on Twitter and be like, yo, Aaron Carter is the man. Like, screw all these haters. Like, I would hype up his boxing. I'd be like, dude, the one thing he did that was hilarious. He did it leading up to his Lamar Odom fight. He had an OnlyFans account where he would do his training naked by his pool. Like, he would be just completely naked, hitting a heavy
Were you subscribed to Aaron Carter's OnlyFans?
No, I wasn't, but I know about this because it went viral for a very short time when people found out about it. But I was like, that is one of the wildest ideas I've ever heard of in my life, is, like, creating an account, preparing for your, like, he was training for his boxing match by hitting a heavy bag completely naked next to his pool. It was like, that's all you need to know about how serious the Lamar Odom fight was to begin with. But I just thought it was, what a marketing strategy. You know, it's just so funny. Anyway, R.I.P. to Aaron Carter. I feel bad. I feel bad about that whole thing.
Who do you have in the Tyson and Paul fight?
Bro, I can't say Jake Paul. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I can't take Jake Paul. I can't do it. But trust me, dude, there's been plenty of fights, because I'm a Jake Paul fan of his boxing. You know, but when he fought Anderson Silva, I was like, I got to take Anderson Silva. When he fought, but I have taken Jake over most people, but I can't take him over Tyson. And I'm going to take John Jones over Stipe, just for what it's worth.
Tyson's old, man.
He is, and he didn't look great against Roy Jones Jr. in that weird exhibition they did a couple years ago. But I think Tyson's pretty motivated, because he doesn't want to lose to this. He doesn't want to lose to Jake Paul, and they're making a really big deal about this being, you know, a big live event on Netflix and stuff. And they postponed it, you know, to make sure that this goes well and stuff.
No, so they postponed it because Tyson had health issues.
Well, sorry, yes, but like, they could have full on canceled it, I guess, is, like, my point is, like, they could have just, like, scrapped this entire idea. You know, but Tyson's doing this for a reason, obviously, and I know he's getting paid a lot of money. I mean, that's a big motivation, I'm sure, for both guys doing this. Also, just really quick to mention before I forget, the UFC has finally legalized the 12 to 6 elbows. finally, which is great. And that's the only time Jon Jones ever quote unquote lost in his career was the Matt Hamill fight. But just watch. Tomorrow night, he's going to beat Stipe with the 10-6 or the 12-6s. Just to prove a point. Saturday night. Today's Thursday. So Saturday night. Tomorrow night is Tyson. Saturday night is Jones and Stipe.
Yeah. I think Jones is going to win. I do not care about this fight.
Well, the problem is that Tom Aspinall is getting squeezed out massively. Who's the
that's the only person anybody wants to talk about is Aspinall.
Yeah,
Stevie hasn't fought in 3 years, and he lost that fight.
Yeah, to Ngannou.
He hasn't won in 4 years.
Yeah, well, and then Jon Jones is already saying that he's going to retire after this fight, regardless of the outcome.
Oh, he wants to fight Alex Pereira.
I would say unless Pereira will do a super fight with him.
Yeah, he wants to fight Alex Pereira because he's about 20 pounds heavier than him.
But Pereira's been, to be fair, Pereira's been talking about wanting to move to heavyweight, become a champ. So,
yeah,
and he could do it.
I mean, I think he can. Jones and Aspinall is like the biggest fight they can make, and they're not going to do it because, dude, Jon Jones. I don't know if you saw this clip. He went into an interview.
I saw that
with a guy.
Because the guy was like buddy with Aspinall, and he figured he was going to get like loaded questions from him. Yeah.
What are we doing?
Well, I mean, the whole sport is just in a state of like, what the fuck when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Because even the gloves, I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah.
They're going back to the old gloves because they will always make exceptions for Jon Jones. Even when he had that picogram scandal, they literally moved events from state to state to get around him failing. But that same failure is basically what ended Filthy Tom Lawler's UFC career. Like, he had to sit on the sidelines for 2 years, and they were literally moving events for Jon Jones with the same thing. Like, I mean, it's all fucked, dude.
It's a shame Ngannou's not there anymore. Like, that's the real fight. Ngannou against Jones.
Of course.
But that's never going to happen because Francis Ngannou's a terrible person, according to Dana White.
I'm going to say that beef with him and Dana has just gotten out of control. It's sad. It's sad that Dana is so vindictive like that, where like he can't just take an L ever. He can't just accept that somebody wanted to make more money elsewhere because Dana wouldn't pay it. So now all of a sudden, Francis Ngannou is hard to do business with, and he's this terrible guy and this and that. But you weren't saying any of these things when you worked for your company. You're only saying this stuff once he's being successful elsewhere in the world of boxing and PFL and stuff and everything else he's doing. He's killing it, and you just can't take the L. So you want to make him look like a bad person. It's lame as hell.
It is. All right, let's get into some other topics that we have. This was technically another topic.
Yeah, that was another topic for sure.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
Matthew Justice won the MLW Openweight Championship at MLW Lucha Apocalypto. He defeated Bad Dude Tito. I like Matthew Justice around here. He's done some cool stuff with the Second Gear crew. He's a big part of GCW. And seeing him get some championship gold was nice to see. What'd you make of this, Jensen?
Yeah, Matthew Justice is the man, and he's always going viral for like. I mean, the main thing I usually see pop up occasionally is the clip of him and Joshua Bishop from AIW, where they go off the balcony. It was like the Death Valley Driver, where they both go off through a bunch of tables. Yeah, I mean, Matthew Justice is the kind of guy that like he'll get to a venue and just start looking for the highest places he can jump off of, like immediately. You know, we found out recently that he had signed an MLW deal, so I assume that there was probably big plans for him, and that makes sense that he would become the Openweight champion. Bad Dude Tito has done a great job as well, just for what it's worth. I think in the last couple of years, he's really stepped up his game. Not that he was bad beforehand, but like I mainly knew him through like Bloodsport events and stuff like that, and like random indie shows. But he's become a real staple of MLW. He had a good run in the Opera Cup tournament this year. He's had a good run with the Openweight Championship, but I like that Matthew Justice got the W. I think he is someone that the company should build around more often. He hasn't been in GCW nearly as much lately. They kind of make it a big deal, like whenever he shows up. And obviously that kind of stuff's going to happen when you're working for multiple companies. There's only so many places you can be at one time. But the one downside of all of this that I do need to point out, because it's been a thing a little bit, MLW's got to figure out their distribution, like their technical issues and stuff like that. This show was supposed to air.
Technical issues, what they got to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because they literally, like, this show was supposed to be live on Saturday night, and we didn't get to see it until Sunday night.
Good.
You said good?
Yeah, this them trying to air this thing Saturday at 10 o'clock was so stupid in the first place.
Oh, well, competition-wise and stuff.
Not even competition-wise. There was nothing going on Saturday at 10. Like, Collision was over by that point. 10 o'clock to start a show is just absurd. Like, what are we doing starting a show? It was in Chicago, too. It's not even like it was a West Coast show, so it's like, oh, right. Well, it's only 8 o'clock over there. Like Chicago's only an hour behind the East Coast. At the very start the show at 8. That's 7 o'clock for those fans on a Saturday. That's fine. Like starting at 10 o'clock Eastern time, you're not UFC. No offense, but UFC does it and they can kind of get away with it because most of their shows are West Coast anyway. But like UFC is an attraction pay-per-view event. You're MLW. Start your show at a decent time for people.
Well, and I think when I say competition, I'm in my own head with that because I'm pretty sure that was at the same time as like maybe DEFY. Like there was some other stuff I was watching that night that
it's possible it was a DEFY show.
Yeah,
but
that's me.
Saturday night.
That's pretty niche on its own though. Like the broader wrestling audience, that's not much competition. I get that. But yeah, they need to figure that out. I mean, they should air their shows at a better time and. This isn't the first time something like this has happened where they've had to like push a show back or like upload it was like another version later.
The last show they did had some weird production issues. I was tweeting through it and popped some wrestlers with my comments.
So they got to lock that down. They've done a great job in recent years of like letting us watch their shows live and a lot closer to live. That was a big gripe that we used to have about MLW is them taping their shows and us not being able to see them for like 3 months. It's a big problem that the NWA currently has. But they got to get the technical stuff together. But nonetheless, congratulations to Matthew Justice on becoming the new Openweight champion. I'm happy for him. He deserves it.
And then the other spotlight is Moose winning the X-Division title from Speedball Mike Bailey. And he says he's not going to cash in on option C. He says he's going to make the X-Division title mean something again.
Well, it's interesting because they chose somebody who is kind of the opposite of the style of wrestling you would think about when you think of the X-Division. Now, granted, the X-Division is not about weight limits. It's about no limits. So there technically is not a style. But I feel like they did a really damn good job reestablishing the style that I'm alluding to with Speedball Mike Bailey, especially with matches like he had with Vikingo. But my thing is, remember during the pay-per-view when they accidentally showed a graphic of Vikingo X-Division champion for their upcoming... Do you know what I'm talking about, Jeremy?
Yeah, but so the whole thing with that is it was Bound for Glory, and the match had already taken place. Mike Bailey and Vikingo. Bailey had already defeated Vikingo, and then they aired the graphic of, Vikingo's going to be in action. A new X-Division champion, Vikingo's going to be in action on Impact. So it's like maybe they were going to do a rematch because Vikingo had the match. I don't think it made air. Trent 7, maybe? I have to go back and look. But that was the match he got injured in. And so I don't think they end up airing the match because he got injured. It was Trent 7, but so I was correct about that. So maybe they would have done a Vikingo Trent or Mike Bailey rematch the following week because Trent 7 turned on Bailey after this match. So maybe Vikingo was going to win. They were going to do a rematch with Bailey and Vikingo was going to win that match. It was very curious that like they had the graphic though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is like I'm thinking exactly what you just laid out. Like I'm thinking that they were going to rematch and Vikingo was going to win, and they showed the wrong graphic. Now I could obviously be totally wrong about that, but I also feel like if they were going to take the title off of Bailey and put it in Vikingo, why wouldn't you just do that at Bound for Glory? Obviously,
yeah.
But that was the kind of the vibe that I got though when I kind of put 2 and 2 together because I was like, I saw the error graphic for Vikingo saying he was the champion, and then all of a sudden Moose wins the X-Division Championship out of the complete blue right after Speedball is going into a completely different storyline. So I feel like they were going to take this title off of Speedball, and I think it was going to go to Vikingo. It's like that's just my line of thinking. But we're with Moose. Listen, I don't dislike Moose. I think that Moose is one of the bigger success stories like in TNA, you know, because he's been there a long time. And he's definitely improved a lot over time, but he's had points where he was like the main guy. He was the champion. He was the focus of the company. Right now, you know, he's in kind of it's just a different type of thing. They're trying something new with him with this X-Division reign. I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, I don't think he's going to have like terrible matches or anything like that. I guess my disappointment is more so, I feel like the X-Division really got back to its roots with Speedball, and now this feels kind of like the opposite of what we had with that. So just my own personal feelings. Dude, I'm going to run out of time today, even with the extension. Because we talked about MMA so much. What were indie topics? I'll try to rifle one of those off real quick.
I'm going to give a big motherfucking shout out.
Nick Gage showed up at Beyond Wrestling to confront Drew Gulak.
Yeah, so the Drew Gulak story in Beyond Wrestling is not good. I don't want to like harp on that too much here, but I understand the criticisms 100%. I've even talked about that on the Weekender. I want to say when it comes to Nick Gage, it's just a very interesting thing that we need to kind of monitor because, you know, according to Brett Lauderdale, Nick Gage is currently not a part of GCW. He, of course, was the only person GCW has ever given, like, at least to our knowledge, has given like a real contract to in the past. And, you know, I don't want to speculate on a whole bunch of stuff, but obviously something was going on, right? Like there was at one point Nick Gage was like missing some shows, like the Canada shows. I remember him missing the PCP Manny match.
Well, he admitted he went back to rehab, so there's no speculation there.
Okay,
he admitted he went back to rehab.
Okay, I don't know how much is public versus stuff that I've heard. You know what I mean? Sometimes I mix up that stuff. So he was going through some stuff. And he missed the Matt Hardy stuff as well. And now he did pop back up, but he's gone. So whatever's going on with him, GCW or whatever, it seems like Brett is on good terms with them still. I mean, he's still vouching for him constantly. And sometimes you just need a break from people and from companies. Like, I'm not saying it's necessarily the end of the world that Nick Gage isn't a part of GCW at the moment. It's interesting that he popped up at Beyond of all places right now. But I think that, I'd be interested to see Nick Gage popping up just more in the independent scene in general, a bunch of different places, because he still is Nick Gage. He still is a draw in the independent scene and a legitimate legend of independent professional wrestling and a legend of wrestling in general. Like, I mean, he's got a lot of lore to him, even that Dark Side of the Ring episode and everything. But yeah, it's just interesting. I don't know what else to say it. Like, I'm wishing, like Piledriver Finisher says, I'm wishing the best for him. And I hope that this is kind of what everybody wants at the end of the day. Maybe Brett was at a point where it's like, it's better for Nick to do his own thing. Maybe Nick was in the same spot and it was just time for them to just do something different for a while. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Like a Nick Gage-less GCW is weird, but they have a lot of great talent there that step up and that are faces of the company. I mean, like Joey Janela is synonymous with the brand and stuff. I mean, like they have people that are faces of GCW that are still there on a regular basis. So it's not like it's the end of the world for Gage or for GCW, but it just feels like they were the perfect match with one another. And that's just not how it is at the moment. So
they should WWE ID Nick Gage.
That would be wild. That would be wild. I got to clock in for work, y'all. I apologize. I got to run. But we do have this over on time. We still wind up, but that won't happen every week. We won't talk about MMA in the middle of the show so often. But Jeremy, if you want to talk about Jack Cartwheel and Nick Wayne after I leave, feel free. They had a great match at the DEFY show, the DEFY/DDT show. They had multiple events over the weekend that were very good and had a wide variety of different types of wrestling and wrestlers on them. But I do have to run, clocking for the shoot job. Good seeing you, Jeremy. Good seeing you in the chat. And if you want to follow me, check out my X at @FightTalk_. Use code FightTalk on independentwrestling.tv. And check out the Weekender podcast every Sunday on FightfulSelect.com. Enjoy the interview also with Carmen Michael after Jeremy's done on here with you guys. See y'all. Happy Thursday. Skol Vikings.
Appreciate it as always, Jensen. When it comes to the Tokyo Joshi Pro, DDT, DEFY matches over the weekend. They ran 2 shows. They're on Triller Plus, so everyone can check them out. Nick Wayne, Jack Cartwheel, again, 2 people who, if you're not familiar with Jack Cartwheel, just WWE ID. We talked about him throughout the show today. He's been on this show a couple of times, so maybe get familiar with him. Nick Wayne, I'm sure you've probably seen some standout matches in AEW that he's had. And the other matches that kind of stand out, Takeshita wrestled. That was Takeshita is Takeshita. He's always awesome. And then the main event of the night 1 show, Miyu Yamashita, Mao, and Speedball Mike Bailey threw a match for the DDT Universal Championship. That was a fantastic match. So I would say those are the 3 standout matches from the night 1 show. Night 2, Marina Shafir had a really good match. Night 2. Shoko Nakajima, easy for me to say. Marina Shafir doesn't get to show a lot of her talent in AEW. I can't remember the last time she's had like an AEW match. And I know there's been kind of mixed on Marina Shafir throughout the years. And she's always done well in Bloodsport, but Bloodsport's very like easy. That's an easy transition for her because she does have the MMA background. But this was a standout match because I didn't think her match the first night was great, but the match second night against Nakajima was very good. So I would say check that out from night 2, and then the main event from night 2, Center and Saint, who we've had on in the weeds against Mao and Speedball Mike Bailey, was a fantastic match of night 2. And also night 2, Gringo Loco been on the show. He won the DDT Universal Championship. So those are 3 matches from both nights that everybody can check out if they would like to see the show. Zara Zacher, we mentioned her as part of the WWE ID. She was on night 2, sorry. She teamed with Maki Ito, so everyone can maybe learn a little bit about her if you've not seen her. So she was part of this show. Again, there was a lot of good talent on both of these shows. If you've not seen either of these shows, go to Triller TV, Triller Plus. It's part of your subscription. You can check out those interviews. All right, everybody, let's get in, or not those interviews, those matches. Let's get into this interview. Back in the Creator Spotlight. First time with me in the Creator Spotlight, but he was on the show over a year ago. He was back. He does a lot in the world of independent wrestling. He might make a graphic that you have seen. He's on commentary. He does ring announcing. He does interviews. He does everything. He's Carmen Michael in the Creator Spotlight.
Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight on Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guest today is a returning guest. He is all over the place in the world of professional wrestling and entertainment. You know him as a ringside. I mean, you know him as a ring announcer. You know him as a commentator. You know him really all over the place. He's a Swiss Army knife of pro wrestling. I know him from companies like New South and Action and TW and every place in between. We have the returning Carmen Michael back on the show. Thank you, Carmen, for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are y'all?
Dude, doing great. Doing
well. Good to finally meet you here on the screen. The last time I had some personal stuff going on, but it is good to be here and see you because I know we've interacted a few times on Twitter. You're one of the few who likes my shout out to everyone grinding legally and illegally.
Oh, I have to
every day. I appreciate it.
I have to. I'm out here grinding every day. I have to like it.
I appreciate it. So it's good to actually talk to you. Good to meet you over the video screen here.
Yes, I don't know if you've noticed, Jeremy, but I've been recently tweeting occasionally the imagine thinking Cody Rhodes ain't the fucking GOAT, and I haven't seen you comment under it at all, but I have been getting a little bit. Teal usually retweets them, so that's pretty nice. So
well, I haven't seen it because I'm actually off of that platform now. I've moved kind of more over to where the skies are blue, so I'm spending more time over there and less time on the X, so I'm not paying as much attention to that stuff. I do apologize, Jensen, for. I mean, you should be apologizing to me. You're stealing my bit over here. So I
am stealing it. I'm not gonna get. We won't get into all the social media stuff. I'm still I never joined Instagram. I don't have TikTok. I've just always used Twitter/X and then Facebook for knowing when people that I'm close to have their birthdays coming up. That's pretty much the main function of that for me at this point. So I see everyone switching platforms and stuff. And I'm listen, I'm just staying on X, but I rarely ever use it now anyways, outside of using it to connect to people like Carmen, people we want to interview, people kind of in our space. But outside of that, I'm just over all of it. I'm trying to live a little more in the real world. You know what I mean? I think everyone should do a little bit more of that. And Carmen is one of the good guys out there in the real world, of wrestling. Last night when I hit you up about coming on this show, you said you were doing a music video shoot. Is that right?
Yes. I had my phone locked up when you had messaged me, and I didn't see it until after midnight. And I was like, oh, no, I missed my shot.
So what I don't know if you can talk much about like what that particular shoot was,
cannot.
but
divulge that.
Well, it's okay. But as far as like, I really just wanted to get at like the fact that you do more than just in the wrestling space. Like you do video editing, you do graphics. As a matter of fact, we've interviewed people in the past, like promoters for shows, and we're like, you had a really good graphic for your show. Who did that? And they're like, oh, that was Carmen. And we're like, oh, of course it was Carmen. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So, so if you can tell people a little bit, maybe if they missed the first interview when we had you on, just a little bit about yourself, not just as like in the wrestling space, but just like you do a lot of stuff in like entertainment in general.
Yeah. So a lot of it intertwines. There's a lot of overlapping. Musician. I used to front a touring rock band. I've worked in the stagehand and audio visual realm, whether that's being a technical director or, just being an audio tech, like whatever that may be. And then over time, just started picking up new things. I hate sitting idly. So I learned how to video edit and I learned how to do graphics, and it's more so out of necessity than anything. And then I just kept practicing and then got into ring announcing, and then got tossed into commentary, and then it just piles on. So now here I am doing all of it.
And you're doing all of this. The last time I checked, I believe you started full time not too long ago. Like you're doing
beginning of this year.
Dude, congratulations, man. That's very, very cool. And I think that's going to be motivating for a lot of people to hear. Because I've seen a lot of you guys, like, we've had Jon Moxley on the show more than anybody. He comes on all the time. And, I remember him and I just standing around in the basement east watching shows as fans, and just him trying to get his foot in the door. And then like the next thing you know, y'all are commentating together at shows, which is just so wild. The two of you guys, like, I love seeing the progression of people like you that they're just grinding so much. Like I think a big lesson that can be taken from our first interview, if people want to go check that out, and we'll probably touch on some of the similar stuff now, but like, I think it's really important as far as like how open you are to just really anything in the space. Like you just said, learn how to video edit because they needed someone to video, learn how to do graphics, learn how to do this, learn how to do that. And just be ready when your opportunity comes around and have an open mind to it and just continue to learn. And as someone who's followed your journey, I want to also congratulate you on all the improvement. I mean, since like the first times I'd seen you doing commentary in New South years back, like you've gotten so much better over time too. So, I mean, like as a fan, I've noticed, and I know a lot of other people have as well. So that's not so much as a question as it is just giving you your flowers. And I know Jerry didn't get a chance to talk to you last time. So if you want to go ahead and start off with anything you want to ask Carmen, we'll get into it.
Oh, I'm moving away from wrestling immediately because I don't actually like wrestling, as many people know. I want to hear about this band. So what kind of music did you do?
Oh, man. So I used to front a band called Throne of Eden. It was very similar to Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet for My Valentine, Atreyu, sort of that sort of style. Even this this past Halloween at OVW, had a show on Halloween. I dressed up as my old band days and was out selling CDs. I mean, I miss it. I still get to hop on stage every once in a while with some of my friends from the band days. Shout out Justin Harris, my guitarist, best friend since I was 14 years old. He'll still host a live band emo night. He hosts them every week, but with my schedule the way it is, I usually get in there maybe once or twice a year and hop on stage and still do a few. But, it's a part of me. I definitely miss it, but I feel a lot more creatively satisfied now. So it's an even trade-off.
We've had a lot of wrestlers who have dabbled in music, and they talk about sort of the similarities and the differences when it comes to the kind of the lifestyle and being almost a starving artist type of person, when it's like, yeah, I like doing the music, but it wasn't paying too much. So I had to kind of move to wrestling, and I found it was sort of similar until you start to just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. But that's
the difference
really cool.
The difference is now when I get $100, I'm not having to split it with 4 other guys. So that's always nice.
That is always good.
who are some people, speaking of like sticking to music, like who are some people in wrestling that you've like bonded with, like shared interest in music?
So I got to work with Fozzy a good bit. So Jericho is one of them. Zicky Dice is another one. There's a lot of people in the wrestling business who come from a music background. Brandon Williams, co-owner of New South, used to play guitar in a band called 21 and 1, and literally there are videos of him on stage with me in the mosh pit, like throwing people around. Rob Weathers is another one. He plays guitar and sings. I actually got to play with him on stage at one of the emo nights not too long ago. There's a lot of them. The Mongrel at New South, I know he plays bass. There's a good bit of musicians around. Okay,
so I did some Twitter stalking here.
I
know you can't say who, but you did give a top country star in the tweet of who you did this music video with. We're not going to recklessly speculate of who it is, but we can confirm at the very least it is a top country star.
I would say so, yes.
Jensen's
I signed an NDA. I can't say anything. So. I will say the video should be out by the end of the year. Okay. And then I can say something. But
I'll look into it.
I can say it filmed in Nashville, which isn't that much help.
Yeah, there's a lot of country stars. Everybody's got a bar there too. So you might have just gone to a random bar and filmed something, and who knows? Guess we'll find out.
A little more elaborate than that, but
okay. But everyone does have a bar in Nashville. Like every country music star has a bar in Nashville.
They do.
From what I've learned. Who has the best bar in Nashville?
I don't drink, so I may not be the best person to ask.
All right.
But I do love going on Broadway though.
Okay.
So
okay. I mean, I lived there for like a decade. So
see.
Yeah. I'll say if on Broadway, I spent my most time at Legends Corner, which is the first bar on Broadway before you start going down like that whole strip. It's the one that's closest to Bridgestone Arena. So I always enjoyed Legends Corner. But that whole little it's like Legends Corner, the stage. I'm blanking on some. There's like a rock bottom brewery like way down that has like really good food towards the water. But they have places all over Nashville, like Broadway Brew House. They got a couple of those. Hattie B's Chicken, I love as well. They have some of those in Atlanta now, but the top ones are in Nashville. But
so they just opened a Raising Cane's there, and I know that because Rob Weathers and I had won. It was a free show at Sirius XM for Seether, and they didn't tell us what it was for. And basically, it was like their album pre-screening, so we got to listen to the album before it released, and they filmed like a couple songs for XM. But afterwards, we're like, dude, that was amazing. Let's just go walk Broadway for a little bit. And we stopped by Raising Cane's. We're like, oh, here's the spot. It was getting ready for the grand opening. Like it was supposed to open the very next day, and for whatever reason, they had Hardy in the Raising Cane's performing for the employees, like before they launched. And it was the weirdest sight seeing Hardy in a Raising Cane's.
Yeah,
I feel like it fits though.
It's WWE legend Hardy. And got great reviews. Right? People love that performance, I think. No?
It got people talking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
WWE Hall of Famer Kid Rock has a bar in Broadway. I've never been. That I think went up after I had moved, or maybe right around the time that I had moved. That hasn't been around for very long. But all of them do now. It's wild how much that city's grown. I moved there back in like 2011, I think, maybe 2012. I think I moved there the first time in 2010, right after I graduated college. And like then it was like getting bigger, but now it's like, I mean, that's part of the reason I moved. I was like, this is like the bars that I used to go to and have a good time. It's just shoulder to shoulder, packed all the way down the street, and just the disaster. But I mean, but it's fun. Like people should go visit. I'm not saying like I actually love the city of Nashville. It's just grown so wildly over the last 10 years or so that but a lot of great wrestling there.
Chris Jericho.
So I hear I haven't been able to. What was that?
Oh, sorry. Chris Jericho just performed at Kid Rock's bar.
Oh, did he really?
Like right now as we speak?
No,
Like,
no,
as
it
we
was
speak?
Monday night.
Okay.
It was Monday night. It'd be crazy if he was there now. He's like, yeah,
That'd be
forget
wild.
Dynamite. I'm going to perform Kid Rock's bar
No,
tonight.
I saw the worst ever country cover of Motley Crue in that building.
Oh, that's
And I got out of there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. No. Go ahead, Jensen. You were going to talk wrestling for some reason. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about some wrestling. Let's talk about something that's coming up this weekend. We have New South Pro Wrestling. It is the show is Brawl for Y'all is the most. Okay, I have a hard time saying it's a tongue twister for me. Brawl for Y'all. But y'all have already announced also the December shows too. So
yes.
As far as what's going on this weekend, just looking quick glance over some of the stuff here. I mean, one that really sticks out: Hunter Drake versus Action Mike Jackson. That's pretty great. Now
that's a dream match if you ask me.
I'm
second
sure.
I was told that was happening, my jaw dropped. I said, "Why did I never think of this?"
Can you speak on? Well, we can talk about both guys, of course, but Hunter Drake, of course, is the New South champion. Just won the championship like this last week over. Tyler Franks had to vacate the championship due to injury. And for those of you who've been following New South, like we do over on the Weekender and like we have here on the Spotlight, I remember both of those guys, Tyler Franks and Hunter Drake, as the Talladega Knights, like the super over white meat babyface tag team. And then I remember seeing Hunter like pretty much immediately go to that main event scene, become a champion, do all that stuff with him and Braden Toon and everything that we saw there. And then Tyler felt like he kind of went from like the ground back up, built his way all the way back up to the top, won that championship. So I was gutted for him that he had to vacate because I think he's done such a great job. But I also feel like there's a lot you can do with, returning Tyler Franks and Hunter Drake, whenever that does happen. So if you can kind of speak to like Hunter Drake, the New South champion, and then of course, his upcoming opponent, Action Mike Jackson, who's an absolute legend.
So first, you mentioned Tyler Franks. I do want to shout him out because you mentioned it. Like it took him a while for that to click, but I'm telling you, when he came back earlier this year, I believe it was in May, it was just like, I don't know, it was like a cloth had been pulled off of him or whatever. Like he was seeing clearly, like he's consistently put in match of the night every single show and is proven exactly what it means to be a champion. Like I know I say it on commentary, sounds like hyperbole, but like he's exactly what you want out of a company's champion. So I hate that Tyler got injured. Unfortunately, the match that was going on with him and Kinsey was fantastic. Was absolutely fantastic, and unfortunately ended the way it did. But he gave up the title, and Hunter Drake returned to pick it up. Hunter definitely has a way of getting under people's skin. I'll say that. Unlike anyone else, especially down here in the Southeast, I think anywhere in Chattanooga, Georgia, Alabama, like Hunter Drake is like the quintessential bad guy. He knows exactly what buttons to push, but he's so good. He's one of the best in-ring talent we have down here. He's taking things a lot more serious. Not that he wasn't beforehand, but he's recently put on 25 pounds of muscle. He had that match with Jay Lethal at NWA Crossfire that I got to call, and it was fantastic. Like, go out of your way to watch that on Title Match. I don't know. I feel like everyone from that crop of New South talent have all leveled up so much. And then you have someone like Action Mike Jackson, who's been doing this, going on probably 50 years now. Like, this is a guy who used to wrestle on WCW. He's wrestled the Road Warriors and Ric Flair and Sting and all these guys. And now, here he is still at the mall selling tickets to the wrestling shows. Like, he's still a top act. The fans love him. I mean, I do believe he's undefeated in New South too. If I could, I have to check the record books. I think he's undefeated in New South. So
that'd be a good one for the world title. I'm expecting Hunter to retain, but you can never count out Action Mike Jackson. But Hunter Drake, man, I'm glad you brought up the weight that he's put on, because like it's noticeable. Like, he's definitely filling out, and you see
he's
that.
jacked.
Yes, and you see that with a lot of talents, that are younger, that start so young and are good so young. That's like the one knock you see on some talent sometimes. It's like they're too small or whatever. But then you look at like Jordan Oliver, they said the same thing about it. He just got a little older, he put on more weight, and now it's like no one's saying that. You know what I mean? Like it happens to plenty of wrestlers, and I think Hunter Drake is the total package. Like he legitimately is, and he gets over literally everywhere he wrestles. Like he pops up somewhere new, he's immediately over. He immediately starts getting booked there, like on a consistent basis, and it's happening all the way up. I mean, he's become a GCW regular as well. I mean, which in my opinion is like the top as far as the indies are concerned, and he's become a regular there. So I mean, yeah, I can't say enough good things about Hunter Drake. It's really cool, and to see him back in New South is like it's like really full circle.
It feels right. I know he's not exactly well loved currently by the New South fans, but it's good to have him back.
Another match that I'm looking forward to on the show is Derek Neal versus the Mongrel. You mentioned the Mongrel just a moment ago. This match is going to be a Haas fight for a company that's known for Haas. This is going to be a Haas fight, and Derek Neal has been one of the best. I mean, in my opinion, for a very long time now, and like a guy who like doesn't even get his flowers to the degree that he should. Like he's a real throwback, and him and the Mongrel I think are going to put on a banger.
Derek, it's his return after I believe 2 years. And if you could have heard the reaction in the building when the video played of Derek announcing he was coming back, like you could feel the buzz in the room start to grow when they just heard his voice. And then the second his face came on the screen, the crowd lost their mind. Like people have been clamoring for it. This is a match that was supposed to happen years ago. And I believe the Mongrel got injured, which obviously delayed things. And now here we are all these years later. And you mentioned it. It's going to be a Haas fight. These two big dudes going at it. I'm excited for it.
One last name real quick. Jerry, get some questions in. I just wanted to ask before I forget to ask, because you brought her up, Kylie Page and Kenzie Page. Page more in particular. If you can speak to them, because obviously they're doing big things in the NWA. Kenzie, I'm getting the two of them confused now. Kenzie was the champion with that gigantic humongous hold. And it's like everyone knew that she was going to be a big deal in her New South run. And then I feel like, in my honest opinion, and this isn't to put anyone else down, I think that Kenzie is the biggest reason to follow the NWA. Like I think that she's like the most valuable asset that company currently has. I really do. And I can't say enough good things about her either, if you can kind of speak to them.
Kenzie and Kylie, I mean, obviously if you know anything about their family, like wrestling is their thing. The Henry family, like they are completely engulfed in wrestling. If you go to any NWA Crossfire show, you will see that. You'll see Kenzie's mom and little brother, sister, all the nieces and nephews running around. Like it's a family thing, and they're definitely all about family. I've come up alongside them from the beginning because, like, Kenzie, I believe Kenzie's first ever New South show was my first ever New South show. And then I remember when Kylie first started wrestling, and like they've both grown so much. And Kylie, superstar in her own right, but Kenzie is going to be like a major star, and I think it's going to come sooner rather than later.
I totally agree.
Sorry,
Sorry. No, I know you're preoccupied. It's okay.
I had to deal with people trying to come in and out of here. I want to ask you about stalking you here. After 270,000 miles, the wrestling road trip car is finally retired.
Rest in peace.
What kind of car was it, and has it been replaced?
It was a 2016 Corolla, and it lasted for a while. It was a good fight. And actually, I was going to save this for later because I knew you always ask what's one interesting item I have. I was going to show off. Got a brand new van today.
Oh,
so
look at that.
The road trips are going to continue. I was worried I wasn't going to make it in time. But the road trip van is ready to go. So I'm ready to break it in this weekend. I've got 4 shows this weekend, so it's going to get tested out.
I was going to say, how many people can you fit in there? I got 12 kids, so we're used to van life around here.
Comfortably could probably fit 7, but I have already removed all the seats and filled that with gear, so I'm a happy man.
Who do you ride with? in that vehicle? Like what wrestlers or other people are you making these trips with usually?
So it depends on the loop. A lot of times, because my my routing is so chaotic, because I have OVW every Thursday in Louisville, so that usually throws things through a wrench because most people, or through a loop, because most people have most people have work on Thursdays, but I'm all in on wrestling. So if I do get people in the car, it's usually Rob Weathers. He's a commentator down in the Georgia area. There's referee Adam Hunter. And then usually we have a rotating fourth. Recently, it's been Casey Owens from TWE. Yeah. We all went up to CZW in Philadelphia, and that was that was a trip I'll always remember. When you have 4 different characters like that in the car, it it's fun. I'll say that it's fun. Other than that, I mean, I've gone on road trips with everyone from Donnie Primetime, Big Dave, Hunter Drake, pretty much everyone on the New South roster. So most of the time it's me solo, though.
Okay, well, if we do solo, I know who gets to pick.
Oh, that's okay. So that one's tricky. And sometimes it's enough to drive everyone mad. So usually, if someone else is driving and I don't have to be, in the passenger seat to stay awake and keep them company, I've got my headphones in. I'm listening to my playlist. I'm not even worried about what's going on. I know Dump Sanders likes his boy band music. So
is that really what Dump listens to?
No.
Oh, I was about to say that. That was a little
a little all over the place.
I meant to mention it in the intro at the top of this interview, but can you please tell us about your experiences with OVW? Because that is really really cool that you've been a part of that company, and that company obviously got a lot of like recent spotlight, having like the Netflix documentary and stuff.
So for me, OVW has always been a huge goal since I got into wrestling. I mean, obviously, you look at the names that have gone through. Like I think, especially growing up watching WWE, like you hear OVW spoken about like these hallowed grounds, like a sacred place to be. So it's always been very high up on my priority list to try to get there. And honestly, I thought I was shooting for the stars with that one. I was like, there's no way they're going to bring in the guy from Alabama. Like they've already got a great broadcast team. They've got people already there. And then ended up making the right connection. I came up for a scouting seminar with Gabe Sapolsky. And while I was there, the OVW talent were already there. And the, Al Snow, AJ McKay, all the right people were there. And AJ invited me back. And then the Netflix documentary came out. So I was like, I should probably wait on this one. I don't want to be that guy. So gave it about a year, got back in touch with AJ. I was like, hey, like, is this still something you're interested in? And he said, absolutely. So I came in, and at first they just had me ring announce 1 or 2 matches on the pre-show. And then it just slowly started progressing. And every time they'd give me a little opportunity, I would give it my best. And now I'm doing ring announcing, commentary. I've hosted the pre-show for one of the pay-per-views. So it still feels like a dream.
Do you know why JBL was there?
He was there to arrive, clothesline someone, and leave. That's what he's always there for.
Oh, Carmen's not going to give us some scoops of why JBL was coming out there. He's everywhere. He's at GCW as well. He's everywhere.
AAA.
Yeah,
I can't keep up with him.
Yeah, he's all over the place.
I didn't know if you might have some insight here, Carmen. You're everywhere too.
No.
So I don't know.
Yeah. There might be.
I'm busy on show days. I don't.
So you were saying if I heard you correct, so you waited like a year before getting back in touch with OVW, and dude, I mean, obviously it worked out, but that's a lot of patience to have, when you want something really badly and you to sit on it for a year, and then but I mean, for them to obviously be like, yeah, you're in, like obviously they had you in mind the whole time.
I feel like it was a conscious effort on my part to not not be the guy who the second the Netflix. So at first it was the Netflix show was announced, and I didn't want to message and be like, "Hey, you remember me?" Because like it's tacky. Like it's tacky. So I waited for the show to come out, and obviously it blew up huge, and then they had 14 consecutive sold out weeks or whatever it was. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let this die down a little bit, reach back out, because I'm not in it for all that. I'm not trying to chase the Netflix fame or anything. Like I just want to learn from the best. Al Snow's kind of taking me under his wing and giving me a lot of advice I haven't thought about before. So
what's very
It's
respectable.
nice.
That's very respectable that you didn't because I can understand how they could perceive it as like, oh, they're reaching out because we're getting a lot of good pub right now. There's a lot of people talking about us, so of course now he's reaching out. So that's
everyone was doing
understand
it.
that.
Everyone was doing it.
I'm sure. Speaking of developmental, that's a good reminder to ask this. So obviously doing stuff with OVW, WWE ID. How do you feel about what's going on with this right now? Because they've already announced a handful of people, and it seems like I was just looking at their Twitter before this interview, and there's like all these quote tweets right now where the WWE is they're promoting indie shows, or they're basically telling people to go watch stuff on independentwrestling.tv. I mean, it's a wild time, and obviously you're kind of right in the middle of that, because not only are they going to be interested in wrestlers, they're going to be interested in people all over the scope of wrestling. So yeah, what are your, because it sounds like there's a lot more signings coming from what it looks like. So kind of what are your thoughts on the ID program and what you kind of know about it up to this point?
It's exciting to me. Like it's been a while since I've been in locker rooms where there's this buzz around indie wrestling. Like it's like people are reinvigorated because now they feel like, okay, wait a minute, people actually are watching the product. And I think that's lit a fire under a lot of people to do better. And, thankful for all my homies getting signed to the WWE ID. Every time one of those graphics pops up, I'm waiting for it and I see it and I'm like, Marcus Mathers, let's go. Like Sean Legacy, like all these people I've worked shows with. I'm like, okay, I'm glad that this is going to people who deserve it, who absolutely bust their tail. Like it's good to see, and I'm hoping it works out for everyone. I'm hoping the paychecks are nice. I'm hoping they get a little bump in the rate on the indies. So
yeah,
I think it's a good thing all around.
It's exciting because, like you said, it's like that obviously Sean Legacy was on the radar because he's part of the program, but that means they're at least aware of Buff and Fluff connection. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like it's like so you know what I'm saying? Like, there's like
tell me that the Steamroller would not get over on NXT.
100%.
If Cody Fluffman was doing the Steamroller on NXT, he would be the most overact in all of WWE.
Yes, he got over super fast. So that's what's so exciting for me too, is like not only seeing the names, but then starting to kind of speculate. It's like, well, if they know of this guy, they know of this guy, they know of this girl, like because they had to have been watching this show and this. So now I'm like, my mind just constantly spinning of like who's gonna be next, and I'm very happy for everyone who's been announced. So I feel like there's a lot of people that I feel like was kind of down on the idea for whatever reasons and stuff. And I get that there's certain things maybe about the stuff that they're kind of questionable, like who knows? But for me as a fan, I'm super like, this is an exciting time for me as someone who covers this stuff. So, sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was going to say real quick, if not to interrupt, you mentioning you never know who's watching reminds me Mania week, and I haven't let Matt Griffin live this down. Yeah. Matt Griffin, right before I go in the ring to announce one of the teams, he said, hey, remember, it's 3 big MFers, 3 flippy MFers. And I was like, do I really have to say that? He said, yes, you do. So I'm like, okay. So I go in there and I'm just swearing away on the microphone. And then the next day, someone sends me a clip of Tony Khan at the Ring of Honor press conference. It's like, yeah, I really wanted to get out to that Action Dean show last night, but I wasn't able to. And I was like, Matt Griffin, you mean to tell me you knew Tony Khan planned on coming and you had me do that? So you never know who's watching.
What's really funny about that is, so I put the video up of that because I was watching the press conference. Matt DM'd me and he was like, is this real? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, this is right from the press conference, dude. Like I just sent him the video. I think I initially tweeted like just the quote, and then like I sent him the video and a DM and he was like, holy shit. No, like it was like no way. So yeah, no, I mean that was awesome. So yeah, there's not only is Tony Khan watching the WWE, everyone's watching.
Tony Khan's watching it like, hey, this ring announcer's great, and then the first F-bomb, he's like, you know what? Never mind. Not even thinking about him anymore. Off my radar.
Oh man. That's a sabotage.
Thanks,
for Matt, because they want to keep you around, man. They don't want you leaving.
We had Matt on when we asked about that. I don't think he knew that Tony was gonna. I'm sure he knew Tony was gonna pay some attention, but I don't think he knew that Tony was like gonna be that plugged in to things. So to defend Matt a little bit, I don't think he sent you out there as a mission of sabotage here of like, yeah, we're going to get into curse and Tony's going to be like, nah, this guy, we're never going to be interested in him. Tony watches everything anyway,
that's good,
especially
people.
a show.
Yeah.
Especially a show that's, after the DVDR boards and everything. Like Tony's of course going to be paying attention to that. That's what Tony grew up on. That's why he's so good on Twitter nowadays. Cause he's like, I used to shit post all the time with all these people.
If I remember correctly, because of the timing of both shows, like he had to have been like working, literally like running his TV shows for Ring of Honor and stuff, and had Action Dean on. Like he had to have been like doing both, you know what I mean, to know what was going, or maybe he was waiting to watch the show afterwards. But regardless, like Action Dean was on his mind while he was running Ring of Honor, which is like, I mean, that's real. See, people can have their thoughts on Tony Khan or whatever, like they're whatever. Like people have a ton of thoughts on Tony Khan all over the place. But at the end of the day, the guy's a wrestling fan. Like, I mean, when you're talking about promoting Action Dean during a Ring of Honor press conference, like, come on, he's one of us.
Hey, I got those IWTV views up, so always grateful for that.
Awesome.
I want to ask about working with Al Snow. You mentioned that he kind of shows you things maybe in different ways that you didn't see before. So what is that experience like working with somebody who has been to the high tops of wrestling, is now kind of running OVW?
Al is a hard shell to crack, but once he realizes you're good people and realizes you're not, just trying to, make a name off of OVW or whatever, like once he warms up to you, like once you're in his radar, he'll bring you in and like, okay, so you need to think of it this way. You need to think of it this way. Have you thought about, presenting it this way? And like, the thing I love about Al is he's not going to mince words. He will tell you exactly what you want to hear. And that's exactly how I learn. I hate coming to someone and saying, hey, how'd you feel about my work out there tonight? Good job. Like, no. I don't want that. Like, I want you to tell me what I did right, what you liked, or what I did wrong, what I can improve. Like, I was working with Tom Hannafin earlier this year, and I remember one of the things he was watching of mine, he just stopped the video and was just like, so here's the deal, and you're not going to like this, and blah, 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 and he gave me some feedback, and he's like, I'm sorry if that sounds harsh. I'm like, no, that's exactly what I need. And that advice that he gave me back in, I believe, January has, like, helped set me up for the rest of the year where, like, my work's only improved since then. So I think Al is very good at working with me with exactly how I learn.
You mentioned Hannafin, who by all accounts is one of the nicest people that people have talked to him have always told me and said like he's one of the nicest people ever. So like getting that advice from him, I imagine one meant a lot, and two, like, so I guess my question is, what was it like working with Tom Hannafin and getting the advice from him and just his overall process?
I am very fortunate to have a group of people around me who believe in me and who support me and get me in the right contact with people. So it's nice to have these opportunities to, have people to watch my matches, give me feedback. Everyone from Kevin Kelly to Tom Hannafin, Scott Hudson from WCW and TNA, even Jimmy Wang Yang has sat down with me and blew my mind because he sat down, he puts on the headphones and he's like, play it. I don't want to watch it. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, I'm not going to look at the screen. I just want to hear you like I'm listening to radio. And that just warped my mind. So now, like, everything I do, I try to keep in mind, like, how often do I sit at home and watch, AEW or WWE, and I've got my laptop and I'm just like working along and I'm, kind of halfway paying attention, but I'm mostly just listening to what's happening. So that kind of changed my mindset, but I feel like I've got a nice net around me that helps make these connections, and I'm getting to pull from different sources and try to absorb as much knowledge as I can.
So that's very interesting. The calling it like it's radio, because you don't think of wrestling on the radio. We listen to sports broadcasts all the time as a radio game, and you driving or whatever, and you're obviously counting on the announcer to tell you the action. There's no, hey, listen to WWE Raw on Sirius XM and there's a radio broadcast of it. So I never thought about like even trying to put it together like that, of calling it like a radio broadcast that people are not watching what is in front of them. But you're right in that, like, yeah, I'm the same way of I'm more listening than watching because I'm maybe doing something else or I'm working or whatever. So how does that switch sort of happen? Like, what kind of things, little insights, this is stuff I'm always very curious about. Like the little, like, how does that switch happen? And like the little insights of like, oh, maybe I should say this instead of this to call it this certain way.
So for me, once I am aware of a bad habit I have, or, get a new piece of advice, I am very cognizant, at least for the next weekend of shows, that I have it on my notes to remember to do this. And then, like with the Jimmy advice, now there are times where if I'm in the car alone, I've got a YouTube playlist of matches, everything from old CZW to old OVW to Memphis Territory Wrestling to WCW. It's all over the place, just different announce styles. And I'll just leave it in my passenger seat, just play the matches on the playlist and just listen to the commentary while I drive. Notice what I like, notice what I don't. There are times when I'll go back with some of the matches I've called and do the same to kind of take notes on myself. But I do exactly like Jimmy said. I don't watch it. I just listen to it, see if I can visualize what's happening. And as play-by-play, I think that's super important. Like, you have to be the person to tell the story of the match and be able to explain what exactly is happening.
Yeah, I really appreciate that approach to it personally. So my biggest gripe with UFC commentary is that they don't do a good enough job of talking about what's actually happening. They're constantly talking about like side storylines or like relationships between like the fighter and the manager, the fighter and this other, like they're talking about all this other stuff and like their training and all this stuff. And I mean, some of that stuff is important to paint a picture of like, why the matches or the fight's important to begin with. But it bothers me when like my mindset is, if you were blind, could you enjoy this product? Like if you couldn't see,
that's exactly what Jimmy told me.
Okay. And I learned part of that from, I used to work with a guy. He was a massage therapist, a blind massage therapist. And I remember him telling me one day he was on his way to go see the new Tyler Perry movie. This is years ago. And I remember thinking like, I wonder how, like, and he was like, he was super hyped up for it. And he was like, I go to every Tyler Perry movie. And I was like, that makes sense though. Cause like Tyler Perry was just funny. Like you listen to him and like you know how exciting things are. And I was like, that's super, super important that like this guy is by far his favorite actor. And it makes sense because this guy does such a good job of like enunciating and like getting it out. You don't even have to see it to think it's funny. And with like the UFC and with pro wrestling, I think you're alienating a big part of your fan base if they can't see what's happening, because there's still a lot you can really enjoy when you listen to like Jeremy mentioned, any kind of sports broadcast, any baseball game, any football game. If you can't be there live, you can still listen and know what's going on and have a good time and still be a fan. So I think that is the best approach to commentary is doing it in a way that like even if someone was blind, they would fully be able to enjoy the product. And it's once again my biggest gripe with the UFC commentary, because I watch it so often where someone lands a left right, someone lands a good hook, someone lands a takedown, and they don't even talk about it. And I'm like, if I couldn't see this, I would have no idea that happened.
Wrestling commentary is the same way, and not just on the indies. It's everywhere. And for me, like the way my brain works, I'm not someone who's like, you have to know the name of every move or anything like that, but explain to me how that affects the strategy of the match. Like, why are they targeting this limb? Why, if, God forbid someone goes to the top rope and doesn't quite make all their maneuver, why did he not get it? Like, is it because the ropes are wet? Is it because his leg was attacked earlier in the match? Like, what is the reasoning behind it? Don't just say, oh, he didn't quite get all that. Like, explain to me why. Like, give me some sort of storyline depth. Like, whether or not it was meant to happen, tell me exactly why it happened.
Bro, that happens all the time where someone like half hits a move and they're like, oh, I didn't get all that one. I know exactly what you're talking about. To me, when you say something like that, you are putting the thought in the air that the person, whether it's an accident or not, is incompetent. Like, to me, like, it should be sports presented. Like, if someone goes for a springboard and slips, like, I want to know, like, was this because something happened earlier in the match that may have weakened the leg? Like, what is it that caused it? Yeah, someone that's really good. Just someone that's really good about that is Dylan Hales. Just for what it's worth, he's really good at always explaining everything.
Dylan is my favorite commentator on the Indies, and it's a shame he doesn't do it more often. Honestly,
yeah, I don't know if he has enough hours in the day with all the stuff he does with IWTV and everything. But yeah, no, he's like a guy that I consider he's like a goat in this world. Like, I mean, as far as like the indie wrestling and my fandom, like what he did with SUP and the whole Southeast scene and IWTV back when it was in Powerbomb.tv and everything. Like, I mean that. So sorry, Jeremy, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to give Dylan some flowers real quick on the show. So
no, all good. I was gonna, we talked a little bit off air about nice things about people. But like, let's try to bury some people here at the end of the show here as we wind down. So I don't know if you're super familiar with this person. I can't stand him. I think he has a grudge against me. He wants to like put me to a table a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Cole Radrick, just the worst guy in the world, right?
Man, you got me off guard with that one.
He's terrible.
I mean, part of me wants to say I love Cole. Cole's a great dude. He's been nothing but nice to me. But in order to keep up with the bit, you know what? Screw Cole Radrick,
There we go.
I'm sure no one will take that out of context.
Dude, I don't think anybody has one. So Jeremy, like, always is like trying to get people to bury Cole in particular. Like, we go to other people sometimes, but Cole's always brought up. And I don't know if anybody's ever been like on your side about this, Jeremy. Like, even when you're like, yo, you want to move me through a table, and they're like, well, he probably should. He probably has a good reason to.
I hate how handsome he is, and I hate how nice he is, and I hate how great his merch always is. Yeah.
Well, that is obviously the bit, is like Cole's like the nicest person in the world, and like nobody has anything bad to say about Cole. So I just want to see if somebody will say something bad
to
about
hell with him.
What about his tag team partner, Alec Price? You want to say something about Alec? Another guy that I love.
Man,
but while we're at it,
all I gotta say, Alec Price, you got to watch out because Nasty Leroy has been calling you out for longest time.
Oh.
My favorite Nasty Leroy story is he's on commentary, and he's just like, this is back when Alec was still IWTV champion. He's like, man, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna take that IWTV champion from Alex Price. Is it Alex or is it Alec? Alex? I think it's Alex. And like, not even paying attention to the wrestling match. It's the most Nasty Leroy thing ever, and I love him so much.
Oh, I need that match.
Dude, Leroy's the homie. I love him.
I usually see him around Atlanta. He's out like every Atlanta indie show, hanging out, every GCW show. Are you gonna be there at Center Stage when they come back, GCW?
I believe that is
December 7th.
Yes. I am booked in North Carolina that day. But
darn it, I was hoping to see you out there.
Yeah, I was hoping to be there. I had put it in my calendar to take the day off, but then in typical Carmen fashion, a promoter reached out to me and was like, "Hey, would you like to add an extra 16 hours of driving to your loop that weekend. I was like, you know what? I'm just driving up from Mobile. No problem. So I'll be going from Louisville, Kentucky to Mobile, Alabama to North Carolina to Atlanta, all in 4 consecutive days. So I love that for me.
What have been your experiences with, you're obviously wearing the JCW shirt, your experiences with GCW, JCW?
Dude, Brett has been nothing but wonderful to me. Obviously, that's all courtesy of Dave Prazak for helping me out there on commentary. When we first did the New South versus GCW show, now obviously we knew I would be on commentary for that, but the night before, Prazak was like, you know what, let's give him a couple matches. So I think I ended up doing 2 matches on commentary for that. And then ever since then, you know, I would go to Prazak, say, hey, is there anything I can improve on? Is there anything that you liked? And then I think he just saw, like, I actually care about this and want to do it. So anytime I would show up to a show, Prazak would always go to bat for me and say, hey, what can we do to get Carmen on a couple matches? And then eventually that led to me being on full shows or being able to travel out to Atlantic City and do that. And then that's actually the JCW. Neither member of the commentary team could make it. And we didn't know until last minute. So I found out the morning of that I was going to be doing play-by-play for JCW with Rob Sanderson, a guy who I'd never worked with. I believe he's from the Rochester, New York area. So we go out there cold and we just do the show, and it was really fun. I believe it was the March Madness show, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was a good. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was saying, normally we wrap up with the coolest thing in your room, but you've already shown us the keys.
I'm pretty pumped on that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So instead, I'm gonna go in a different direction here for the final question. To get to know you more as a wrestling fan and your likes. You got 3 matches. This is basically a desert island. You got 3 matches that you're taking with you to the desert island. These are the only 3 matches you can watch for the rest of your life. What are you taking?
Why'd you put me on the spot? Oh man. Oh, that's tough.
While you're thinking, my answer would be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 40 main event 3 times. Just 3 times.
Just 3 times.
All right, WLC number 1.
Hell yeah, let's go.
That's a good one. That's
final deletion. Final deletion, number 2. And then Sting versus Ric Flair, Great American Bash.
I respect all of these. Those are all great choices.
I was thinking through it. I'm like, I could list 100 great matches that I love, but
yeah,
you know what? I think WLC would entertain me the most. So
that's people get mad at me because I'm like, they're like, oh, what's your favorite wrestling match? I was like,
it's unironically great.
The Doomsday Cage match between the Alliance to end Hulkamania against Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage.
It's like 9-on-2.
Yeah, they're like, that can't be your favorite match. Like that match doesn't even go. It's like, no, but it's entertaining as hell. It's so stupid that I'm like, I have so much fun watching that dumb match. Like, give me that. No offense to Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, but like, cool. You do a bunch of great moves and you tell a great story and fantastic.
Cool, you're just like,
no, give me the cage that it looks like it's about to fall through. You know, Arn Anderson.
Give me the Chamber of Horrors.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of stuff that I like. So I respect the WLC move. I appreciate.
That's unironically a super entertaining match. Like that was like the best match of the show. It was like the pre-show match of that pay-per-view. I want, if I remember correctly. But would you have a favorite match that you've commentated? If you can pick one.
Oh Lord! So every year I do a list. So like every show that I do, if there's something that I think needs to make the list, I'll put it on, and then at the end of the year, I'll go through and kind of sort them out, kind of see what my favorite one is. Honestly, this year, there's been a lot of them, but to me, the one that sticks out wasn't quite a match. It was GCW in No Compadre in Chicago. Prazak had fallen ill, and had asked me to handle the transitions between matches while Emil was in the ring. So when Emil would come back, he would get back on the headset. So I was almost like the third man rotating in and out. But the first voice you get to hear for Mustafa Ali's return to the U.S. Indies is me saying, for the first time in blah, blah, blah days, like, the king has returned, blah, 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 and like feeding off all these stats. And like, to me, that was a really cool moment. A lot of my family lives in Chicago. Chicago is, holds a near and dear place in my heart. So being able to do that in a place that I love for a wrestler who I absolutely adore is just it was a really cool moment.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a good one to end on, I think, unless you got anything left, Jeremy. That's a good closer for me.
Yeah. Carmen,
Awesome.
we appreciate you joining us, man. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
So online, it's Carmen M. Childers. In person, just find me on social media because I'm always on the road. I'll be hitting show 152 of the year this weekend. So I've been going nonstop. So come say hello at a show. Let's take a picture, sign an autograph, whatever. Have some fun. Other than that, just support indie wrestling. There's a lot of it out here that's really good. Come say hello at OVW every Thursday.
There you
I mean,
go.
I don't know. I never know how to end these things.
You're everywhere. That was a great ending. No, Carmen's
Yeah.
everywhere. We talk about him all the time on this show. I talk about him on the Weekender. Like,
Oh, no.
all good things. You're just so tied into so much of this stuff. Which is great. That's a testament to your work drive and your ability to once again be a Swiss Army knife. Of being good at a whole bunch of different stuff. So. We appreciate it. It's been a long time coming getting you back on the show. We've been wanting you back for a while. Jeremy, as a matter of fact, has been bringing it up many times to me behind the scenes. Like, he couldn't make it the first time for really important reasons. And, this time, I was really happy we were able to get all three of us together for the show. So thank you. And I guess, Jeremy,
Kid duty. I get it.
I can't tell if he's like leaving the interview or if he's going to bring someone back to like end the interview, or maybe we'll just wind up editing this part of it out completely.
Hey, it's time for AEW. He's got to go.
Yeah, he probably has to go turn the TV on and start getting that taken care of. But I can't tell. He's going to bring. Are you going to bring someone on, Jeremy?
No, I'm not bringing anybody.
I was like, are you?
Sorry.
That's okay. I told Carmen we might
had to
just
run
cut the interview right at the end, like anyway. So, but
Guys, we'll be right back here on the spotlight. We are back. Big thank you to Carmen Michael. That ending was abrupt and very funny as I was interrupted by one of the 300 kids that are running around this house, and they needed something, and I was trying to pull it all together there at the end, and I heard they were rapping, and I was like, let's just go ahead and end it right there. Why cut that out? Why cut that out? Those are the kind of wholesome moments you can only get live in a pre-recorded fashion, right? Big thank you to Carmen Michael. Everyone go check him out. Everyone can support what he's doing. He's doing great work on the independent scene. We appreciate him coming on and hanging out with us for an hour as we recorded that. Guys, we will be back next week. Jensen and I will be talking all the things happening in the world of professional wrestling. We have In the Weeds tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern with myself and Joel Pearl. We have Coexisting at 3 p.m. Eastern with Rob and Maggie. That is tomorrow as well. Wrestling Made Me Cry with Auntie Collins and Kylie at 12 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. In the Weeds is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. FMC, if you don't like wrestling, if you want to hear some basketball and reality television talk, that is myself and SP3 and our pal Share Delaware. That is Tuesday mornings, usually at 9:30, 10 o'clock nowadays. A lot of stuff going on the channel. I'm making shorts again. Everyone go check out the shorts, support the channel, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a good review, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us out. We appreciate that. Subscribe, thumbs up, all that fun stuff. Thank you for hanging out in the chat. We'll be back next Thursday. Goodbye.